Well, that was a great match, but that's not the final match of the day, Turner.
It's not? Are you serious? We have another match? What match, Arashi?
I believe it is our very own Indonesia against Malaysia.
No
There you
way.
go.
We
We've been
cursed
hyping
the
this one up too.
Philippines? Dude, no, guys. It's your fault.
Oh, what? My fault. What?
It's your fault. You cursed the Philippines, and then you're gonna curse your own country. Oh, what in the world, Arashi? I remember
Such
this
is
is
life.
again a standby. What am I saying? A standby towards a rematch of the MLBB scene as well, Arashi. Indonesia versus Malaysia. Last time around, it was Malaysia being able to win it 2-0. I think
Oh.
Malaysia and Indonesia played again in a best of one, but I don't know the results yet. I haven't seen the results. So if you guys can, let us know in the comments, we'll be very grateful.
Oh, yeah, Indonesia and Malaysia, man. Wow. We were also hyping up Malaysia earlier on, by the way, saying that, okay, Malaysia rise up moment. It's time for them to really make a statement. So who exactly are we cursing it, Turner? Because, in my predictions, I went for Indonesia. If we go with that pattern, I'm sweating a little bit, just a bit concerned. But what about you, Turner? What do you think?
I'm anticipating this match, right? I'm anticipating this match because if we take a look at like the standings and how it has been shaping up, it was Malaysia at number 2 in Group A under the Philippines. So you could even say that they have been able to create success as well, right? Being able to make it all the way to the playoffs. I think they lost one match as compared to the 4 matches that they played in their group because there are 5 regions in their group, so it's a little bit different to the group that Indonesia is in with only 4 regions. So there's definitely a fighting chance, and if stats don't mean anything after the match that we saw earlier on, right? It should have been a free win for Philippines not being able to drop a single match whatsoever up until this point, but still Cambodia won it. So is this going to be a trend of underdogs? Is that the story that's being built in now at ISF? Because if that's the case, then Malaysia definitely can go for it. But ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take a look at the official team lineup here for Indonesia. We have Sini, Vivian, Shell, Fumi, as well as Vival. So this is the Team Vitality roster that just won at SPS. If they win ISF, this will be their 21st championship since 2021. Them not dropping a single trophy in any particular tournament. So it could be like an A-tier tournament, S-tier, local, international, all the tournaments that they've been participating in, they always get that number 1 position.
And in their figurative MCU Thanos Gauntlet, this will be the only title, I believe, that they have not claimed yet, if I'm not mistaken. So if they really get this, then they are literally gonna earn the whole completionist achievement and just gather everything and kind of complete the game that is Mobile Legends, right? Just go for the end game scenario immediately. So definitely a lot of people believe that they are gonna win, but a lot of people are also a bit nervous now because this is where it really matters, right? They've been so dominant. They've been winning again and again. So the wins so far are kind of like just another day in the office. But this particular one, there's more stakes to be talked about. So I think that is where this team has a chance to try and turn it around.
We have Rosemary, we have Fafao, Annabelle, Ecstatic, and R. All going in, all R. Well, what was that R, Arashi? That caught me off guard. Don't make me giggle too. God, rein it in. But again, still the main 5 here for Malaysia as well against Indonesia to look for that final slot to get to Riyadh, to get to WEC, and to make it to represent their country as well. You talk a little bit because I really want to know what happened. Because I'm pretty sure Indonesia and Malaysia went in for another BO1 in the male scene for the grand finals in the playoffs. But I have to double check, Arashi, real quick on the website, on my trusty website.
Right, it's funny you brought that up because I'm not particularly I I do show up on occasion here, so I didn't really follow through all the way. There are a lot of details I definitely missed out on, which is why I've been visiting iesf.gg, just checking on it again and again, because I just, wasn't sure about what the happenings are, what the stakes are right here. So we'll have to see. But for now, there's definitely some rivalry here. We always talk about Indonesia and Malaysia. Oh, serumpun, serumpun, right? We're on the same team, same gang, kind of. But at the end of the day, we're still rivals, man. And whichever scene you're watching, there is that feel of like, okay, we're similar, but am I better than you are? Right? That's the question that has to be the back of any kind of person who is in the competitive scene. It's not just the players, man, even the coaches. You bet when they're eating lunch or something, they're like, do we win against the Malaysians? Do we win against the Philippines? Like, that's the kind of thoughts that come into your mind as a competitive person in general.
Is that an insider in? Oh, Malaysia won 1-0, Rashi. Oh my lord. Okay, so in the group stage, it was a 2-0 for Malaysia, and then they met again in the grand finals. And Malaysia won it against Indo 1-0.
Yikes. Well, that's definitely terrifying news for us over in Indonesia. But on the flip side, man, for you Malaysians, congrats so far. Let's take a look at the drafting phase, though, for game number 1, and we're going straight into it, man. No time at all, no break at all. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here for you all the way. For the side of Malaysia, though, Yu Zong and the Chip. Definitely pressure in the lane, but that global presence, we haven't seen the Chip really prioritized as much as the Lo Yi, or even the Moskov, actually, or the Angela, when you're talking about the global look. So that's an interesting option that Malaysia has opted for. It might be some kind of info they have over Indonesia here. But for Indonesia, Arlet and the X-Borg, they definitely have their eyes set on that EXP lane. And with the Vexana banned early on, we just saw that Cambodia was able to use it to great effect whenever there's any attempt for some kind of all-in team fight. So that could be hinting at Indonesia going for something a bit more aggressive, a bit more death ball oriented. But with the Angela ban away, that leaves that maneuver, the Angela pick forcing into a Link pick. It won't be available, but for Indonesia, it doesn't even matter, bro. It's the Ling, just immediately picked up. We have to see for Malaysia, what is the response? We've seen the Ling pop off again and again, and it's not really the easiest hero to really try and counter. On a prio basis, the Moskov could be an option here, right? Good crowd control for an assassin, good burst damage technically with the attack speed buff of the Abyss Walker. And who can complain about that global presence? Without the Angela available, they can go for the Lo Yi as well, actually. But they've shown the Fredrin for now. So it's going to be a classic utility jungle against assassin battle as the Harith. This was the strategy that was utilized by the Filipino team, I believe. The Harith and the Fredrin here. So for Indonesia, seeing the beefy jungle, and a strong gold inner here. Can they go for the Roger? They can't flex it any longer, but it can still be a solid pick for their composition.
I mean, technically they can kind of wait, right? Wait, no, they can't. I was thinking with the Harith and the Fredrin already being picked up, that they can kind of wait, but this is their final pick here in the first phase that can definitely be banned out by Malaysia as they enter the second phase of the drafts. But it looks like absolutely no, they're not going to go for the Roger at all. They're going to go for the Terizla and the Claude instead. So the final pick in now for Malaysia. Remember, the Luo Yi is still open and available if they want to utilize that to get a little bit more map pressure across the map. It is a little bit vulnerable towards the Ling, but it really depends on the strategy, right? What kind of style that they want to be going for, unless they want to pick up maybe an EXP laner here, right? Before it gets banned out. We've seen the Yuzong do great against Terizla. We've also seen oh wait, but the Yuzong's been banned out. They have the CC as an option, but they go for the Paquito. So Paquito and Terizla in that EXP lane. What do you think about this matchup, Arashi?
Terizla Paquito? I think it's whenever a Paquito is in the conversation, it's always a scale matchup, right? It depends on where how and when you land your skills, right? Because depending on how it's set up, if there's any minions around you as well, then it can give you a ton of HP when you're trying to go for those turns, for those trades. But now, against a Terizla, we have to see, of course, to begin with, what emblem is going to be used by both these EXP laners. And for now, we're going to move straight to the second phase. Whereas for Malaysia, it's a lot of burst damage. And if that's the case, I feel like they're gonna want some crowd control. The Fredrin can provide some, and so can the Paquito, but it's not very reliable, right? And of course, they do not want to get dove on. They don't want to get counter engaged massively as well, so they will ban away the Minotaur.
You know, should they go for the Roger ban here, Arashi, away from Indonesia? Because Shell has been doing so well. Oh wait, but the Claude's been picked up, so they don't even need the Roger. Because I was thinking about the Roger earlier on, because, you know, okay, forgive that mistake, because Shell has been picking up maniacs left and right with the Roger. So it's like scarred into my memory, and I'm pretty sure it's been scarred in a lot of these regions that have gone up against the Roger that Shell has brought up. But with the Claude, we've also seen her find so much success. Honestly, Malaysia, they need to be aware of the split pushing pressure that this Claude can have in the later stage of the game, especially after we get into the Lord dances. And maybe that's why they picked up something like the Paquito, right? Very fast clear, can kind of control those far lanes as well. And in a 1v1 against the Claude, the Paquito can do good in that 1v1. So there's a lot of reasons as to why this Paquito has been picked up, other than the fact that you mentioned about that skill matchup with the Terizla in the EXP lane. But it looks like the Grok is going to be eliminated away as well. We've seen Vivian do so much on the Grok as well. So the Matilda also gets eliminated, as does the Faramis. So that's two bans, the Vexana and the Faramis. And Malaysia go ahead and pick up the Valentina. So what do Indonesia pick up in the mid lane? Are we going to see a Lilia? That's something that we've seen quite a bit so far. But the Luo Yi, as it has been opened up alongside with the Kufra, that is going to be detrimental in stopping this Harith if he does get to that point where he does deal damage. One of the main weaknesses of this Harith, despite him being able to go for Purify, is that crowd control, right? That constant crowd control coming through, not just from the Tyrant's Rage and Revenge, but also the bouncing ball that the Kufra can utilize as his kit.
Yeah, the bouncing ball will definitely be a problem for the Paquito, Valentina, the Harriet, and technically the Fredrin as well. So it's definitely a value pick right here. But that Luo Yi is where I'm quite interested. We haven't seen the Luo Yi really being put to as good of or as effective as a hero as it used to be before the changes. But now they have options here. They can send the Ling away just to boost that roaming speed. They can use the diversion into Battle Mirror Image, clear the wave, and come back strat that the Claude can be comboed with. And for the side of Malaysia, it's going to be a Baxia. And considering the game we just watched earlier, wait a minute. There's a Baxia and a Fredrin.
Who's going where?
Baxia Rome? Baxia Rome hasn't been a thing for a long time, but there's always been an argument to, more ganks, more crowd control, and the passive that's always available, even without a lot of items. I'm guessing that's where it's gonna go, but
what about
at this
Paquito
point, who knows?
Jungle? Fredrin EXP Paquito Jungle. Do you think that's a possibility?
I think it sure is. It's a possibility, right? It can be done, but I can't say for sure if it should be done, right? Sometimes people are too preoccupied thinking about whether they could. They don't stop and think about whether they should, right? So we have to wait and see, man.
We've seen the Paquito actually being flexed into the jungle, and they actually won. No, did they win that game? I don't think they won that game, but we saw the impact that it had. So if we're looking at this lineup right now with the Baxia, the Fredrin, and the Paquito, it's still definitely up in the air as we are moments away of coming into the game. A little bit of a, salvation game, a little bit of an avenging game from Indonesia here, as of course their fellow brethren in the Mlbb male scene has actually fallen prey to Malaysia. Will it be the same story once again, ladies and gentlemen, as we enter the semi-finals, our second semi-finals of the day? But There you go. It looks like it is going to be a little bit more standard with the picks, despite it not being quite standard, right? Rosemary on the Fredrin in the jungle. We have Annabelle on the Baxia in the roaming position, and it will be Bea with the Paquito in the EXP lane going for Quantum Charge, actually.
Okay, so Annabelle on the Baxia will be just leashing, just focusing down that the orange buff for Rosemary on the Fredrin, just increasing the farming speed by that much. We've seen this being a new trend here. The roamers kind of assisting in clear in one way or another. But look at the mid lane here. That's going to be the three-man army walking down from Malaysia, wrestling away the Litho away from Indonesia. And despite having the low Yi, Indonesia seems to be still playing a bit more hesitant, just waiting for the right opportunity.
Yeah, it looks like it is. And if we take a look at the gold lane, it does look like Shell is going to be able to... Wait a second, Vival. She's actually going to be caught quite low here from the damage coming through from Annabelle. We do see a charge here. Is this the moment?
There'll be a lot of damage coming from Cine though, as Vivian props the bouncing ball. Won't be enough damage for now. Ecstatic though, trying to throw back some damage, make it competitive. But the fact that the roamer is a Baxia, that really stops this Ling from being able to be free when it comes to the farming patterns. He can, the Baxia can kind of match the mobility with the shield unity, and at least for now, until some sustain and some more damage is built up by the Ling, there's gonna be a lot of times where the Baxia can kind of bully the Ling away.
But technically right now, Vival on the Ling has been doing a great job of actually interfering with the jungle of the enemies. But wait a second, in the top lane, that's a lot of damage being traded in right before this turtle. Arashi Bea should be forced to go in for the recalls.
She's still waiting to try and maybe set up for an outplay, but Rosemary goes straight for the neutral objective for the turtle. In comes Vival with the Ling, going for it. It will be stolen though. Heavens of Blades as well to secure the first blood. Indonesia picking up some steam, going still for a bit more aggression, but showing again that when it comes to neutral objectives, you can't count them out.
That's a Warcry Ling for you, ladies and gentlemen. That early game damage and that early game objective control is something to respect. Sure, in this 1v1 against Bea, it might be a different story because naturally the Paquito with that burst damage does put Vival in quite an awkward position, especially her being on such a squishy hero like the Ling. But Vival on the Ling earlier on, is she going straight for Sky Piercer is the question here. I guess we'll get a little, peek into the items later on as this game progresses. But for the most part, in the first 3 minutes of the game, it looks like Indonesia are still holding on to control in terms of that objective play, as well as, a diversion play too up top.
That's a great read from Bea to really back away from the situation though. But for Indonesia, they're still doing pretty well when it comes to the maneuvers around the map. For Malaysia, whoa, hang on, Shell taken very, very low, but here comes Annabelle rolling down to the bottom side, going for the play actually. 1v1 behind the turret with the vengeance as well. The roamer will take out the gold laner. Shell taken out, but look at Vival coming in to try and collect that gold, and the rest of the roster comes in through as well. Annabelle now gonna be taken out, taken down, as Rosemary tries to trade in still, trying to brawl it out against the assassin, but it won't be enough. R procs the Zaman Force, and Vivian stays on top of him. She can't really go around, but the penalty zone can't really lock her in with the Purify, but it doesn't matter. The damage is too much, and that's one extra turret shot for Vivian, and she still makes it out of that engagement alive though.
That was a valiant effort though from Ecstatic on the Valentina with the IMU Tyrant's Rage Revenge, right? She nearly was able to kind of turn things around and get a favorable trade on her end, but unfortunately Indonesia were just a little bit too slick with it and were able to get out of that position, especially that happened under the turret. So that damage taken was, increasing over and over, but a 2-for-1 in the top side, and that's gonna be Fumi Echo taken out right before this neutral objective take. This is a proper setup now for Malaysia.
Ooh, in comes Vivian though, jumping in towards Annabelle. These are very beefy members. Vival can go for a steal here, but look out for Bea. Oh man, unfortunately the retribution was just not close enough for such a small margin of error, and now Vivian pays the price. But look at the response immediately. Vival going in for the steal. Unfortunately, the buff will not be available. Wow, Malaysia, man, they're keeping up with this.
Yeah, she was a little bit too early with her retribution earlier on, and so there was a sliver of HP that eventually Malaysia could have capitalized over, but here's a dive.
1v3 for our Tempest of Blades though will allow Vival to actually kite back away from the damage. The tower falls, but so will Vival though. Malaysia with the response. No global presence, no problem. Annabelle just rolls into the rescue.
1-for-1 trade now. Vival for R. Technically, it's kind of good for Indonesia to try and stop the snowballing from the Harith, but it looks like the Luo Yi, Cine here, gonna get caught really low, forcing a recall as Malaysia look for more opportunities on the map. It looks like this mid-side turret is something that they've been keeping an eye on so far. But let's take a little bit of a skip back to the junglers, right? Vival, level 9 right now. But Rosemary has also reached that same level. Wait a second, Vivian!
Getting counted on right now with the bouncing ball to try and survive. It won't be enough though. Malaysia, man, they identified the chance. Oh, City even taking the Priest's Wrath. Slain by Rosemary. Malaysia now immediately making plays across the map, but look at Shell trying to equalize 1v1 against R. The Zaman Force is used up, but it won't be enough. Shell backs away from it, and still Malaysia taking the better trades all across the board. That mobility, the crowd control, is allowing them so much more opportunities.
2-for-0 trade, and it looks like Vival is going to go on to Bea here, looking to defend this turret. She successfully does that, and this is a 1v1. Arashi, Tempest of Blades have been utilized as well.
Oh,
What?
The outplay though! Bea says no, I'd win! Vival gets immediately nuked out. That is just not the way that was supposed to happen, man. The flicker out of the Tempest of Blades into the burst damage, and now Malaysia collapse, converge onto the turtle. No retribution for Indonesia. It won't be available. And even on the bottom side, Fumi Echo locked in a duel, locked in a 1v1 as Rosemary goes for some sort of dive right here. But Shell already made her way down to the bottom. It's going to be a 2v1 for Indonesia, but Ecstatic and Annabelle.
Whoa, whoa, whoa!
Look at that burst damage! That's going to be Fumi Echo falling down soon as well. 2-for-0. And even the turret on the top side, Malaysia.
3K gold lead now for Malaysia, ladies and gentlemen, as we enter the 8th minute of the game. What initially was Indonesia with the full control has now been taken otherwise, and we're going to take a look at that instant replay earlier on. In a 2-for-1, that backup coming from Malaysia was superb. And then top it off with the burst damage coming through from Bea on the quantum charge, by the way, has been insane. Right, 402 at the moment. I'm actually curious to see the itemization of this Paquito as Vivian misses.
That's the Tyrant's revenge combo. It won't really work out. Bea though going aggressively under the turret. Vival will try her best to try and secure, but will it be a repeat? Bea survives the engagement, and Indonesia are forced to just take the loss as Malaysia continues with their domination. What is going on here?
What is going on, right? This is a team that has not dropped a single game in their previous tournament, and that was quite recent. That was only like a few weeks ago, right? Not even the Philippines could actually go for the counter towards this team. Imagine not dropping a single game, and here it is, Malaysia taking complete control, gonna open it up and take in that turret, that burst of damage coming through. Luckily, Fumi is still gonna be able to defend that, but look at Rosemary.
Ooh, Vivian getting jumped on right here, but the damage coming in from Cine is definitely something not to be trifled with. Penalty zone from Fumi Echo to try and turn the tides around, but Vival does not land the Tempest of Blades onto anyone. And here comes Bea, the raid boss, with her eyes on Shell. Won't be able to find it just yet. As once again, Malaysia losing only the roamer for roamer, not taking any disadvantageous trades so far.
5K gold lead for Malaysia and counting. Rosemary, despite the lead, is still on the same level as Vival. So Vival has still been keeping up in the jungle, in the way that she's been able to rotate around the map. She's actually picked up the Malefic Roar as well, in the hopes to deal some more damage onto the members of Malaysia, because so far she's been the one that's been bursted out every time she goes in, either with the Tempest of Blades or the King's Poise. There's no chance for her with the damage that she's been, you know, failing to give out. But here it is, Tempest of Blades and everything in the board. Arashi!
Bea is just focused down. Tempest of Blades not really down yet, but here it comes. Rival going in, but it doesn't matter. she's going to be forced to get away from the engagement zone. Bea still surviving despite the penalty zone and the Tyrant's Rage. Tyrant's Revenge combo used onto her. This is some unreal stuff. And in the middle, Fumi Echo taking damage from R, but it might be a bit too much that she can handle. It's going to be Sini picking up the kill. The Lord is still up, and now Indonesia has the man advantage. Shell trying to get the mid turret, sneaking it out, knowing that there is a moment of respite in the middle of the fight. But look at this, Malaysia immediately contests grounds once more.
And now it looks like Indonesia are utilizing the mobility in the lane to go in for the far lane, right? To push into the far lane. And Bea is going to be too slow to capitalize on that. But meanwhile, what?
Annabelle taken out. Bea now trying her best to try and turn this around, but she's just a bit too low. Forced out, still alive though. Vivian finally avoids the Prince's Wrath. This is a double kill for Fumi Echo, and Indonesia will take it. What happened right there? It's like a switch was just flipped, and now Indonesia are just getting the better of Malaysia in this fight, but they are all below half HP except for R. Can they go for it? Will they risk a steal? Vivian kills it up, goes for the play, but no! Malaysia takes it away! Indonesia though tries to get retribution for that. Rosemary will fall, R will fall as well, but the Lord falls into the hands of Malaysia.
The retribution fails again for Vival here, ladies and gentlemen, as it is 3 members taken off the board in favor of Indonesia, but they had to lose control over that Lord. We're gonna take a look at a quick replay earlier on. We do see that Vivian was charging, had an eye over, but again, right, the Fredra being able to collapse it over with her ultimate was eventually able to get in that retribution with the combo in, with the damage. And Malaysia was able to get the better out of it. Meanwhile, Shell caught in a bad position here. Annabelle gonna be able to give her a little bit of CC there. There is backup coming from a static, but they're not gonna commit over onto it. I guess that's the main difference, right? Claude pre and after she gets her power spike, because before that team fight, before Shell was able to deal out the damage and become the main factor in these team fights, she was able to pick up that golden staff, and now she's reached that point. We're gonna see the next item later on should be the DHS, but again, right, Shell has been so dependable in a position where Malaysia has been picking up the scraps from Indonesia.
Fumi taking a ton of damage right here though. Rosemary positioning aggressively, and R spies a chance to try and do something, but these are turrets falling down all across the map for Malaysia, as it's supposed to. But later on, Annabelle is going to be stuck in a tough situation because her mobility tool is also the engage tool, and they jump onto Bea though. That's going to be an amazing pickoff. Rosemary tries to turn this around, but Shell is left in the back, avoiding the vengeance damage from Annabelle, just hiding back, and they're still under the turret though. This is a chance for Vivian to go in for the chase. Vivian lands the Tyrant's Rage, Tyrant's Revenge combo, but Vival has a chance to chase it down. There's going to be a diversion for Sini, but she won't be able to spot anyone just yet.
Ooh, she's got really low. She needs to be careful here. But it looks like there is backup coming in from Sini as well as Vival in order for Rosemary to be zoned away. And it looks like that is going to be a purple buff stolen for Indonesia away from Rosemary. And that's also a turret taken in. The Blazing Duet earlier on was also quite spectacular. As we take a look into the item, so she actually already has the Corrosion Scythe, DHS, as well as a Malefic Roar, so that is where the damage is coming from. And Malaysia finally, up until this point, are gonna start struggling, right? It looks like the Paquito has a little bit of a, hybrid itemization, Arashi, with the Dominance Ice. We have the Hunter Strike, we have the War Axe, but also the Oracle.
That's for more healing with the Festival of Blood and getting the extra shielding as well if she goes for that combo. Vivian now walking into Bea once more. The Paquito at this point with Indonesia catching up in gold, actually taking the gold lead outright. She's just a bit too vulnerable because she's not a pure tank. So Bea needs to be a bit more careful because she is a lot more punishable now. As the diversion is prepared, you're going to push the bottom side and diversion out. That seems to be the idea here for the side of Indonesia, but Annabelle spots it.
Looks like they're looking for a catch, right? Or even a bait, just for some information as to the whereabouts of Team Malaysia. Rosemary at level 15, Vival at level 15 as well, so it's back to a 50-50. Rosemary, for the most part, have been able to get the retributions over Vival. So we'll see if that's something that will happen once again. Will that be the same story once again? Or will Indonesia find a way to just really dislocate Rosemary in her tracks?
Oh, that's good play from Malaysia. The deleting shell immediately. Bea once again. Now she's going for the backline, but Tumi Echo, the slow lumbering Teresa, will be taken out. Rival is looking for a chance to try and do something here, waiting in the wings. All she can do is cut the wave though. Without any damage sources left, Sini is the only one with Vivian, but that might be enough for Vivo to get some prio. She's trying to make plays happen, pushing the wave on the bottom side as well, but Malaysia make their move. It's a diversion to the top side of the Lord right here. It can catch the members of Malaysia off guard, but to what avail? There is a retribution available, but Malaysia are taking it slow. They don't have a lot of DPS tools available, but look at Annabelle actually spotting down.
That's so risky. That's so risky, and that's a big pick over to Annabelle, but it was all just to buy time for Malaysia to pick up the Lord once again. Indonesia have failed in this regard. It looks like Viva wants to go into the commit.
Ooh.
Even the flicker play from Vivian actually misses. Bea going to be able to outmaneuver and outplay Indonesia yet again in the 16th minute of the game as Malaysia are coming back from that deficit. And at this point, these items are going to be ramping up as we are entering the 16th minute of the game. Ladies and gentlemen, will it be up to a very risky diversion play? Is that what we're going to look forward to, as it looks like Malaysia going to be pushing down the tempo down under?
All right, we're slowing down a bit more right here as Malaysia are just trying to set the waves up for that perfect push. For Indonesia, they do have spammable abilities in the hands of Sini, and they do have a late game claw to try and make plays around with. Look at that, Rosemary just taking a couple of basic attacks, already forced to back away, but the turret will fall. A duel happens on the top side, though. Viva up against Bea, who will come out on top this time. It turns out it's going to be Bea. Once again, just a dominant force when it comes to the 1v1. No split push potential available for the side of Indonesia. As they try and defend, they lose their topside base turret as well. And Malaysia seems like they're not quite satisfied. They want some more. They won't be able to. But they have shut down everything that Indonesia can throw at them.
Very disciplined from Malaysia, right? They understand the limits of their push and they don't want to move forward. They don't want to give a fighting chance back to Indonesia. And now with both side lanes being pushed in, with both side lanes being exposed, either way, wherever this Lord is going to be spawning in the next few seconds of this game, Malaysia will be able to capitalize over it. Especially seeing now how much damage this Paquito still has as we take a look into the replay. So it looks like Indonesia were still able to clear in the bottom lane, and Malaysia still were able to get a push. It looks like they were utilizing the mid lane as a distraction. Meanwhile, are very quickly going to be able to make work of the turret and expose that for them to utilize in their next play. But look at the standoff coming through from both of these teams, right? Vivian in this bush, Sini over there as well. They're opening up, finding information. I don't think they know that Rosemary's there, but they spot Bea, and it looks like they're going in for the kill here. Malaysia.
Vivian cut off from the rest of the team, taking a lot of damage. The immortality is still available, but Indonesia won't be able to respond. They try their best to get their comrade out, but that will be 45 seconds on the death timer for Vivian as the Lord spawns in 13.
Here it is, ladies and gentlemen. The moment that we've been waiting for. Will Malaysia be able to close this game here and now? But look at that!
Penalty zone and Tempest of Blades, that's a lot of damage, but still, Vivo falls. But fortunately for the side of Indonesia, that's a mega kill picked up. And look at that blazing duet though. Shell trying her best to do out the damage. Rosemary gets out. The immortality is still available. Look at the diversion though, to try and zone R away and possibly catch her off as well. Rosemary now alone, potentially cut off by the team. Sini goes for it, spots her out. It's gonna be Rosemary taken down for sure. Running into the base of Indonesia, just trying to buy time as much as possible. This is valuable time not being used by Indonesia to go for the Lord. It's still paying off just well. But finally she
Arashi, Claude.
In the mid lane, Shell, she doesn't even care about the Lord. She's going straight for the crystal. Indonesia with an amazing comeback. What was that?
What are we seeing, ladies and gentlemen, for our first game in this series, in this final best of 3, in the final semi-finals of that game? It was so close for it to become Malaysia, but Indonesia found that opportunity, that small window of opportunity, and they were able to capitalize over that. You were talking about how the Fredrin was able to buy some time that Indonesia weren't utilizing. But as you were saying that, I was watching Shell literally push through in the mid lane, go in straight into the base, and eventually win that game for themselves. That was a huge setback to Malaysia's already winning formula, to Malaysia's already winning condition, that Indonesia were able to punish and look for a loophole over. So that's going to be, ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia picking up game number 1, leading this best of 3 series, and now at match point as we take a look at the highlights of what happened there, if you guys just tuned in and perhaps even missed it, right? Because you would think that with how it was going in the early game that Indonesia had a little bit more say, but at some point of the game, Malaysia just really came back. There were so many moments that, like this, right? Annabelle gonna be able to, they were able to stop Shell in her tracks, prevent her from getting to her power spike quicker than ever. And then there were moments here again, Malaysia picking up the effort. There were so many 1v1s between Vival as well as Bea that eventually led to Bea winning it out. Ecstatic, great defense here, preventing them to go for that push into the gold shield turret. And initially, right, most of these objectives were actually taken by Malaysia. It was only the first neutral objective that Vival was able to take.
And afterwards, it's just Malaysia finding the way to be just a bit more aggressive, to find the right fights. And the fact that the Ling threat was nullified so hard right here by Bea. I mean, shout out to Bea for making this game so difficult for Indonesia, man. 1v1s, it doesn't matter. 1v2 even, she can still hold her own. And when she is the one sent out for the split push, this was that amazing outplay, man. I thought, okay, this is about a done deal. But Bea, with the happy feet, with the deletion of Vival, that was what they were using, right? They were using Bea to do damage, but also to sustain and bait out all this aggression. And as a result, just come in and seal the deal. I really like the way Malaysia was able to actually make this Baxia roam just look so much more viable. But unfortunately, towards the end, it just became a bit too chaotic. And for Indonesia, that kind of worked out in their favor. It was looking quite rough, especially moments like this where you can see Vival just confused on what to do. But afterwards, they found some opportunities to try and come back.
By the way, I just want to give an honorable mention now that we're looking at the highlights for Ecstatic, right, on the Valentina. She's on a Valentina that is utilizing Purify, Arashi. So for playmaking, it's not that easy, especially without the flicker, because she opted for the Purify. But there are so many moments that she's able to make these plays with the Tyrant's Rage Revenge combination without the flicker. So that was something that, hands down, high mechanics as well from this Valentina.
Definitely, man. That was a big problem as well, adding to the layers of crowd control. And it's not always the same crowd control every time coming out from Ecstatic. That is part of the issue. But this was that one big moment that was so good from Vivian, man. Taking out Bea before she can even cast any of her spells, any of her skills. And with Malaysia chasing down under the turret of Indonesia, that was a key moment in Indonesia spotting a chance to go in aggressively. And with the diversion, they can just catch up so well. But look at this, man. Even after that setback, Bea is undeterred, going in and deleting Shell. The Purify won't even matter.
Definitely. Here she gets even Fumi as well, just to cause more chaos and drama to already a very offensive and aggressive Malaysia. And they were able to actually utilize that push to eventually pick up that top and as well as that bottom mid lane turret, the base turret as well. And yet Indonesia, that was fine for them, right? They still were able to find that opportunity later on that we should be seeing very soon. And I do believe that this is leading towards that team fight.
I mean, it started off with Vivian getting picked off already, so we were thinking that there's no way this works out well for them. But that penalty zone into the funneling from Malaysia to be in a choke point for everything from Indonesia to be like put on top of them. And of course, this blazing duet play, 1v2. That's a late game Claude, ladies and gentlemen. Shell definitely did a number onto them. And with the diversion play, We didn't see too many crazy moments, but when it happens, it was just so impactful. They were able to stop Rosemary from going back. I don't even think that solo she can actually stop this push for the end, but Shell got it done with that Claude. And despite everything, the kills are 20-20, man. This was that close of a game.
Exactly. It could have gone either way. It was pushed to the very end in 19 minutes. One of our longest games so far that we've seen today here in the Mlbb women's scene. And that's exactly the kind of show and the kind of performance that we expect from both of these teams. Malaysia, man, even though Indonesia are at match point, we can expect Malaysia to fight even harder for game number 2. And perhaps we're going to see a similar story, right? In game number 1, in our match number 1 of the playoffs, we saw that initially it was Philippines being able to pick up that first game, but then Cambodia come back with a clean sweep, right? With a reverse sweep rather. So that same story can be done by Malaysia. So it's not to say that Indonesia will take this right now. There's definitely a big possibility that Malaysia can go for the upset as well and go for that underdog story going against this team that hasn't dropped a single tournament so far.
It's a very dominant team, showing again why that is absolutely the case, right? The recovery, the adjustments mid-game. It's so crazy that the game was that close that it all comes down to just a few select moments. If that went one way or the other, they could have really decided the game. I have to, man, even if you ask me who's my MVP, I think it has to be either Cine or Shell. Considering how Viva was really shut down completely, I think Shell definitely takes the cake there for MVP.
Ooh, I think a point is to be made for Cine. So let's see who is gonna be getting this MVP, ladies and gentlemen, for our first game in this best of 3 series. Will it be Shell? Will it be Cine? Or will it be Vivian? Maybe Viva? We're gonna see in just a few moments. I love the suspense, man. And it's Cine, the player of the match. Ladies and gentlemen, oh man, yeah, I'm on a roll. Is this like a 4-0, Arashi? I don't know. How do you feel about this? I mean, you're the analyst.
It is what it is, right? At the end of the day, we're just human. We're just normal human beings. So, hey, I mean, you're definitely on a roll right here. You're the real brains behind the entire Indonesian desk operation, man. Like everyone now is just waking up to your brilliance.
I have a big forehead already, Arashi. Might as well be smart, right? I think it's a bad position to have a big forehead and have the lack of brains. So I'm gonna take this one. Thank you. I'm gonna use that to pat myself in the back. But again, right, there were just so many moments that Cine was able to create on a hero like Luo Yi that was nerfed, by the way, right? The cooldown on her diversion was increased to 1 minute plus before cooldown reduction items, but it's approximately a 1 minute gap that you will have to capitalize over and make it effective, right? Because it's not as spammable as it was before. There's no room for error, there's no room for mistakes. So the fact that she's able to utilize a Luo Yi that kind of has fallen off after that readjustment towards her diversion and make it work and still create those amazing plays goes to show the level that Cine has, right? I think that final moment as the Fredden was fighting for his life in the side part of the map earlier on, the fact that she was able to take down that second layer, I don't remember who it was, but I love that play. I think Arashi can explain it better than me, but you know the moment I'm talking about, right?
The final sequence?
Yes, the final sequence.
Yeah, Rosemary was just chased down again and again. Cine, Vivian. I mean, everyone that was available was just chasing her down just to ensure that, well, first of all, they can get the death timers rolling, but also to ensure that she can't go back and try and clear the wave. Like I said, though, with how much power Shell has in the late game Claude, I'm not convinced that Rosemary can do much to try and stop it, but there's always a possibility, right? But man, late game, that was just so devastating. That final fight, I really felt like for the most part, a lot of those fights were done in a very sporadic fashion, and that's by design from Malaysia, right? They know that there's a blazing duet. They know that there is going to be a dispersion, rotation, spam coming in from Cine on the low Yi. So they're trying to avoid that happening. And whenever they go for a play, it's always a big burst of action and then slow again. And that's why Bea just looks so much more flashy than everyone else, because she was one of the key members that can do so. But in that fight, they really got a pick off on Vivian, but they got baited, man. They really thought that, oh, we can get some more, we can get a guaranteed Lord or even an end, but they were in that three-way choke point. They got hit by the penalty zone, the Tempest of Blades, and with Cine just spamming everything, unfazed, undisturbed by anyone trying to jump at her. That was the end of the story.
That's like best case scenario for Luo Yi, right? You have everyone
Right.
clumped up as one, and then your passive just keeps on proccing, and that burst over and over and over and over and over again was, imagine being caught in that, right? Penalty zone, and then you get the dispersions coming through with the passive with the yin and yangs. It's just like, okay, I'm stuck. Because one of the main things about the passive is not only the damage, but also the CC that kind of locks you in place, right? That displacement that becomes an issue, that if you don't have Purify or something along those lines, it's so difficult for you to get out because it's so sticky. So it's like, yeah, I'm
Right.
stuck here. Yeah, I'm just gonna die here. There's absolutely nothing I can do.
Because I mean, it kind of pulls you back too, right? It's a
Yeah.
bit of stun, but also a bit of displacement, and especially when you're panicking, right? Especially when you're in that situation where like, hang on a minute, we're in danger, right? The combos are coming. You're trying to move, and then you kind of slid back and forth, left and right
Yeah.
by the duality, the passive of Lo Yi. And what can you do, man? And it's great for, honestly, I think it's great that Malaysia were able to actually control for that long. Like I said, I love the Baksha roam. I've been saying it has potential for quite a bit, but even for Indonesia, it's great that they were able to hold off for that long. Because usually, if you're up against a Malaysian team and they get rolling, they go hard, man. They don't back down at all. So being able to stave the angry Malaysians off in the first place is already a bit of an achievement.
Okay, let's see how this is going to pan down as we are, ladies and gentlemen, back to match point for Indonesia as we enter the drafting phase for game number 2. Chip, actually the choice of ban here from Malaysia. They both have swapped sides. Ling also going to be banned out. We have the Harith and the Angela. So earlier on, we didn't even see the Roger being picked up at all, right? The Roger wasn't even placed in the jungle. It also wasn't flexed into the gold lane. They completely ignored it. I think Angela, it has to be a priority ban here, but the question is, what do they think about the Luo Yi, right? Indonesia definitely saw the value of the Luo Yi. So will they leave that to be opened up for, of course, Malaysia to pick up for themselves now that the Yu Zong has been banned? So Malaysia is putting Indonesia in quite a tough position, and they go for the Vexana, so they don't take the bait, and they're gonna go and decide to go for a contest instead. We have Roger, Matilda, and the Luo Yi that's still opened up right now.
I feel like the Lo Yi really would benefit the style that Malaysia is going for. Like we saw that they were abusing that shield unity again and again. And so if they can move more people faster than before, there's a chance they can put Indonesia in the same spot, the same seat, But they go for the Roger here, a bit of flex, a bit of prio for the jungle and the gold lane. For Indonesia, after banning away the Vexana here, they really respect that the team fighting, the crowd control layering from the side of Malaysia. So if you talk about crowd control, the Grok comes to mind, but I don't think they'll pick it up this early. I'm a big fan of the X-Bor considering how annoying it is, but again, probably a bit too early for that. It's going to be the Minotaur along with the Moskov though. So the global presence is still very much in the hands of Indonesia.
It's a power pick. Though these two picks are a power pick for Indonesia, right? Shell on the Moskov has been insane. You saw her mechanics on the Claude. Wait till you see her mechanics on the Moskov, right? You can imagine. And Minotaur is also a signature pick for Vivian. I think one of the glaring things that I saw from game number 1 was kind of from Vivian, right? We didn't really see her impact on the Kufra. There were a lot of times where she missed her Tyrant's Rage and Revenge and her
True.
Flicker combos. So maybe she's not as comfortable on the Kufra, seeing as the Kufra just made his way back into the patch. But something like the Grok was actually something that I expected. It's also a power pick for her. But the Minotaur is also something that they found a lot of success with, especially now they're going against a hero like the Claude Arashi. So this should be a Roger in the jungle alongside the Kufra now being picked up by Malaysia.
Well, the Kufra has traded hands for now, so all things considered, I feel like for Indonesia, they're going to require some other beefy member to take the initial engage so that Vivian can actually have space to go in for the counter. Baxia immediately shows up, and I think it's no longer a flexible option. So with that, though, they've already showed their cards, Malaysia with a lot more damage. Now Indonesia are the ones who are turning it around. Now they are the ones with the DPS, with the solid tanky frontliners. So we'll have to see how this really plays out. They ban away the Terizla as well. It's like they want to try and force Malaysia to engage them in a battle of tankiness, and they're planning on coming out on top.
I also think that the Kufra being picked up here from Malaysia, they were anticipating that Indonesia would pick up yet another assassin in the jungle, right? Because the Nolan has been still left open. We do still have the Hayabusa on the board. And Indonesia, Vival, she's very flexible with her picks. We've seen her on assassins, we've seen her on utility as well. So I think that's kind of a foresight that they were looking for. We have the double Yuzong being banned out. So we can safely assume that it's the CC in the bands that you see, ladies and gentlemen. The one that's a little bit more red is the CC. And there are so many EXP lane bands, by the way, right? Arlet, Xborg, Terizla. What is left to play in the EXP lane? I guess Ruby, Benedetta, and Paquito are the options now.
I was about to raise that point, that Paquito, that was just so devastating, so useful for Malaysia. Now, most likely, it falls into the hands of Indonesia if they want it, but at the same time, they're almost forced to pick it, because if they let it go here and let Bea have it again, now with the Roger, with the Kufra, that whole combo looks like it makes a bit more sense. So for Indo, will they bite on that, or will they invite Bea to just go back to that Paquito and go for something different here? It's Uranus! Wow!
Wait, what? I think I saw this back at SBS, Uranus in the EXP lane. I don't remember how that match ended up, whether or not the Uranus won in that lane, but what is the idea of the Uranus here? Are they anticipating that the Malaysians will pick up the Paquito in that EXP lane? Is that the kind of the idea that the Uranus has here in the EXP lane?
It could be it. It's also the fact that right now, the Roger generally doesn't do DPS, and the Claude, each attack kind of like it's a triple shot. So it kind of stacks your passive a lot faster too. But it's matched by a Khalid in the EXP lane. So Burst to try and take out the Uranus before the friends or the passive can start ticking. But with that Iesf for the control, this is a tanky team that can be slowed down a lot. But with the Kadira in the picture, now it's a bit more tricky. You can expect Purifiers coming in from the side of Malaysia.
But also the same thing can also be said for Indonesia, right? I mean, technically Malaysia also has a lot of cash, and I personally love the Iesf pick here because we have so many heroes that are forced to keep a short range when they go in for these team fights, right? You have the Uranus, melee hero, Baxia, melee hero, we have the Minotaur, and we have the Moskov. That is, okay, he is an MM, and he does have a basic attack, and there is range, but it's a relatively short range, right? Very similar to like the carry, whose range is actually quite small and can be capitalized by the real-world manipulation range from the Iesf. So very interesting here with the Iesf pick coming through, but what do you think about this Kadira? What's the idea with the Kadira here?
It's a great tool to follow up on stuff. There is still a very possible Shield Unity into Breath of the Ocean combo, right? To go for those pickoffs. You can use it as a deterrent. You can use it as an engage tool, obviously. And the presence of an assassin would be nice in general, especially against a Claude, against a Iesf as well. There are targets available right here, but they can't really have it in the jungle. So now they go for an assassin in the mid lane. And I think it's difficult, right? It's never easy to run with an assassin in the mid lane. There's just layers of issues you have to try and deal with. But our very own Indonesian Sans likes to pull it off very often. So if Sini can mimic that kind of performance, there's a chance that even without the knockup, because R is going for the Purify, she can kind of just zone out by using the rough waves, and that will just zone R long enough. Because as much as Moskov is short range, the Cloud ain't much better either.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Match Point in the semifinals, our second semifinals of the day. We are at match point with Indonesia one game away of securing that final ticket, that second and final ticket to Riyadh, that second and final ticket to WEC, as Malaysia look to go for a reverse sweep against their fellow Langgar, right? Fellow Indonesians here as well. But we'll see. Already a charge from Annabelle earlier on here, Arashi, but they will still be able to get out alive. And I think one of the interesting things here for me is the fact that Shell, as we're talking about her, we're going to have a look at how she's been doing in her lane, is actually opts to go for that spell instead of going for something
Inspire.
a little more safe like the Purify. She goes for Inspire instead, but meanwhile in the bottom lane,
Ooh, a lot of damage. That's going to be the first blood by Rosemary. Fumi Echo, overestimating how tanky she can be right there, gets absolutely punished. Yes, the Uranus has tankiness, but you have to wait a bit longer. But Vival trying to even out the score in the middle right here. Going to Ecstatic, but there's not enough damage. No level 4 just yet. Malaysia take the first tempo play, and they're not stopping, man. They're going straight into the jungle. They're prepping for a trap, but look at that. Ooh, Sini, eventually taken out still. It's going to be early value for Malaysia, but can Indonesia equalize? Raging Sandstorm onto 2. It won't be enough though, as Rosemary gets taken out, gets walked on by Fumi Echo on the Uranus.
yeah, they traded completely back here. Indonesia being able to take down Rosemary as well as Bea, and they should have the man advantage when it comes down to this Lord setup. However, Vival, despite the success that she was able to obtain earlier on, is forcing to go for a recall as Annabelle, once again with the charge, actually goes in for the cancel. But there is still that kill pressure that Bea offers, whether it be on the Paquito, whether it be on the Khalid, that Indonesia still need to be aware of. And this is a very active Khalid, by the way. Arashi earlier on was able to, clear in the mid side as well. And now look at what she's able to do here.
Look at the Minion Fury as a response though. Annabelle caught out alone. Sini tries to follow up on it, but the Raging Sandstorm catches 2. Annabelle pushes Vival back in, but Fumi Echo already in the back, just tanking out the damage. But look at Bea. A pincer maneuver right here, confusing Indonesia that wants to play front to back. But they are unfazed. They have the sustain to try and play this long game. The Vivian though getting caught out right here. Annabelle, can she steal the deal? It won't be enough, but look at Shell coming in with the Spear of Destruction onto Ecstatic. It will be the end for her. As we can see, Annabelle is waiting for a chance, trying to get out of it, stuck in the side of Indonesia. Rivaldo eventually will try and ignore her to go for the neutral objective. This is a very chaotic sequence of events, but look at the play. The rough waves onto Rosemary won't be enough, as Bea is still just lingering around, like you said, Eterna, playing it active, trying to make an impact, but in the end, Indonesia gets the better of Malaysia, and Shell makes her way back up top as the team secures the turtle.
What were we watching? Like for the past 1 minute, 1 to 2 minutes. That was so chaotic on all fronts, right? Rosemary being dived in, but Kadida in the back line, forcing a recall, seeing as how low she was, but Sydney was also caught very low in terms of mana, so she couldn't really execute that as properly as she should have. But then at the end of the day, with all the events that came through, it looks like Indonesia is still going to be able to pick up that objective, right? Which is something that they can hold on to. But for the most part, Malaysia is still equal when it comes down to the economy, right? So despite the kills for Indonesia, despite the neutral objective takes from Indonesia, Malaysia has a 100k gold lead, Arashi.
Yeah, but Indonesia goes to try and extend that gold lead. It's going to be Annabelle deleted immediately by the rough waves. That's the Baxia Kadira combo. And Indonesia, they're not looking like it, but they got pressure around the map. Malaysia can definitely be a real threat if they group up together. But for Indonesia, they have pressure to play around with. Fumi Echo once again tries to be an absolute nuisance. Uses the Purify already though, getting hunted down, getting hit by the Raging Sandstorm, but it won't be enough for now. The slows though will keep her in place long enough for Malaysia to finally take her down.
enough burst for her to be taken down, but meanwhile Shell also not staying idle, as she is going to be able to push in this turret in the top lane. But actually no minions there. They were able to successfully clear that. Shell actually forced in a recall there, forced into, back away from that objective, even with the help of Vivian as well.
So smart move by R to stand behind the turret so that whenever Shell was going for the turret damage, she has to tank the turret and back away. But look at that play on the top side though. Shell popping the Inspire, trying to duel it out 1v2 though. She comes out on top. As Indonesia make a play for the turtle, the Spear of Destruction is still very much available as Fumi Echo just walks off around, zoning away the members of Malaysia and finding information. Seems like Malaysia will be able to match though, and they'll be able to leave that turtle to Indonesia.
Yeah, she has been such an exceptional player, Arashi. Like Shell, despite everything that's going on with Indonesia, you can always count on her to be able to win it in that mid and carry towards the late game. Because, man, time and time again, whatever hero that she's being placed on, she does exactly this. Now they're going to be able to push in once again.
Ooh.
We do see Annabelle forcing a recall, but a charge, a re-engage.
Minion Fury though gets Annabelle stuck, and look at the rough waves used onto the roamer only though, but Cini is hitting back and forth, dealing out the damage. It won't be enough. Vival and Cini Petrify being used, immediately purified by R, but Fumi Echo is on the scene. The Raging Sandstorm though catches two, gets the double. That's gonna be Bea once again making the plays happen for her team, and Fumi Echo is alone right now. 4 members down for Indonesia, and that's just it. That's just Malaysia at their finest.
A huge standout here as Shell goes in with the Spear of Misery
and secures the kill immediately. The global play. Indonesia respawning and immediately striking back. What is going on? The Spear of Destruction.
What is going on? Exactly, right? And all the while, Rosemary gonna be very quick on her feet as well, picking up that turret in that top side that she was able to get, traded back in with the kills that Shell was inevitably able to pick up. 2-1-1 so far for Shell, but man, Bea, whether it be on the Paquito, on the Khalid, she's doing work with the executions into the back line that Malaysia have been able to work over and work on top of those big plays by Bea. It's a big threat that Indonesia really need to try and, solve as we take a look at that replay.
Yes, with a Minion Fury, but like we said, Indonesia used a bunch of their spells already on the frontliners, and they lost Shell, right? If Shell was around, maybe this fight would have gone differently. And Fumi Echo, once she arrives, everyone respects the presence and backs away, but Bea, with that killer instinct, exceptional stuff, man, finds a chance to go in the back line. But now Indonesia, they're the ones still orchestrating a play right here. And they go on Annabelle. Rosemary is dishing out more damage than Vival can hope to try and do. And look at the slows, man. This is allowing them to go for a full one pick-off. They commit onto it with the real manipulation as well. But the Minion Fury will buy enough time. Look at the Blazing Duet from R to try and solve this problem, but it won't be enough. That's gonna be the Spear Destruction though. It's gonna be Shell once again going in the back line, getting low, but still surviving. And Indonesia get full complete control, but Rosemary is just crashing away. Fumi Echo ignored in favor of Cini and Shell, but Rosemary will not be able to do so. Coming in. Unfortunately for her, she gets taken out. It's going to be a dive still from Fumi Echo though to try and get ecstatic, but it will actually work out for her. A double kill as Annabelle is just forced to watch her comrade taken down.
What a layer of events that occurred, ladies and gentlemen, in that final showdown. Oh my lord, right? I mean, Rosemary, I don't know if it was a mistake or not, but she accidentally used her skill onto Fumi Echo when she could have gone for the kill onto Cini instead. And I don't think that Rosemary would have been caught that low if she was able to get that kill down, right? And then Shell came in, was able to capitalize over those movements and eventually pick up that turret in that mid side. The chain of events that happened earlier, that was so unfortunate. And Bea, once again, being one of the main damage dealers, picking up the Malefic Roar, one of the anchors of damage for her team, was unable to find a proper moment to go in for the Flicker Raging Sandstorm. But look at this, Annabelle with the re-engage, very aggressive, actually going to be able to bait in Cini right before they go in for the lore take.
It's gonna be the rough waves used up already. But look at the far side. Fumi Echo, knowing that she's so tanky and it requires multiple members from the side of Malaysia to try and take her down, she just goes in for the push. And now there's a chance that Indonesia can get a fight without Bea diving into the back. And look at Vivian already on the Antique Cuirass. She's gonna put herself between the opposing team and the Lord and completely deny it. It's gonna be a Lord picked up for Indonesia, and look at the flank from Fumi Echo. It won't be decisively starting any kind of fight, but it's a pull from Annabelle. Immediately countered by Vivian with a knockup. The rough waves zone everyone else away. Already sends about to 5 though by Bea. Once again, will it be enough as Shell is still left around. And finally, she gets taken out by the united effort of R and Rosemary. That's gonna be a win for Malaysia, despite Indonesia getting the Lord.
Bea has been insane! Have you ever seen that in your life? 5-member Raging Sandstorm Flicker combo, and Indonesia nearly gets wiped out in the 11th minute of the game. Man, I am so hyped. We have to take a look at that again, right? Because that was a huge play. We do see that most of the members here are Annabelle with that beautiful Tyrant's Rage and Revenge coming through. But look at the Ocean Odyssey, the Ocean Waves coming through. But that Raging Sandstorm Flicker onto 5, and the way that Malaysia were able to combo in with the Blazing Duet and all the other sources of damage was just impeccable. That was a huge moment for Malaysia. And now Rosemary picks up the Malefic Roar to boot. We are caught in a precarious position if Indonesia look to close this 2-0, because for sure Annabelle, Bea, they mean business, and they've been able to look for so many opportunities to turn what initially was a dominant game. And here she goes again!
But Cindy goes for the counter engage onto Rosemary though. The real manipulation will zone the members of Indonesia away, but it won't be enough for now. Shell goes for the Spear of Destruction, not taking it just yet as her teammates chase down slowly but surely, ecstatic, unable to escape. They finally won and found a winning engagement right here, as Vivel will be able to just chase R down slowly but surely. And Indonesia regroup immediately. They're going for a push. They know that they have 2 death timers already rolling. Can they go for some kind of end engagement? Going for the turrets most likely, but they have to be careful. The fact that Shell does not have the Purify makes it so difficult for her to stay in the front and output that damage steadily. They get a base turret for their efforts, but they have to be careful. Whenever they're able to get any kind of lead from Malaysia, it has always been traded back, so they are definitely on their toes for that.
A ticket to Riyadh hangs in the balance here, Arashi, as we are entering the 13th minute of the game. There have been so many moments that both of these teams have been able to find them for themselves and for their own team, and just one mistake can really lead to their demise here, especially for Malaysia, who are now looking at Indonesia that are at match point. We see that Shell picks up the orange buff right now. If we take a look at both of the junglers, Rosemary is actually a level ahead. So when it comes down to this Retribution contest, when it comes down to the Retribution battle, it looks like Malaysia should have a little bit more to work with, a little bit more of an advantage, especially with the tools that have been utilized. But now we get to kind of slow things down finally to break down what has been happening for the past 14 minutes of this game, Arashi. Wow.
That was 14 minutes? Wow.
That was 14 minutes. It felt like it was longer, right?
Oh man, it's non-stop. It's on site for both these teams, man. Whoever they see, they just immediately pile on. That 5-man Raging Sandstorm just caught me completely off guard, dude. I was so shocked by it. I can't even respond properly. Man, Malaysia just going toe-to-toe against Indonesia, but it really feels like it's just a brute force fight, right? It's just mechanics on top of mechanics to see who reigns supreme. And for now, with the Lord already in the picture, it's gonna be more of a macro setup with Fumi Echo on the Uranus pushing away. But the fact that Indonesia has a 3 tank, like 2 damage dealer composition, and the fact that Shell is going with the Inspire instead of the Purify makes this game just so risky for Indonesia. Because we saw earlier, despite the fact that there is backup, there is coverage coming in from Vivian on the Minotaur, if the Roger and the Claude can get to the Moskov, Shell can still get taken out.
So would you call it overconfidence maybe? Going in for the Inspire instead? Because let's say that Raging Sandstorm hit. Shell, if she had the Purify, she would have been able to outmaneuver that and maybe turn that entire team fight completely around. But the fact that she's opted to go for this, it's going to be very risky as Annabelle goes in for another pick here.
Engage onto Vivian, the Minotaur, not the ideal target. Dribble though, getting chunked down, taken away from the fight. Malaysia picked up the Lord, but look at the pinch coming in. Shell comes through, but the Wind of Nature from R will save her life. They're chasing down to Bea and Ecstatic, and Fumieko has the movement speed to try and run them down with the slows as well. But the Raging Sandstorm onto one person, turns it around. Fumieko falls, and the Lord comes through. Indonesia forced to back away.
Oh no, no, no. The chase coming through from Indonesia, it wasn't successful with the movement speed, and then the re-engage coming in from Bea with the Raging Sandstorm onto Fumi. That was just so brilliant. And now they're gonna have to buy some time, right? 20 seconds for Fumi to spawn, and now they are at a man disadvantage with this, enhanced Lord stepping into the bottom lane. These turrets are gonna fall down like flies, and yet again, that ticket to Riyadh, that final slot to Riyadh at WEC hangs in the balance with R picking up the Malefic Roar. This is shaping to be a very difficult position for Indonesia.
Shell will be trying to clear the Lord out immediately though. Surprisingly, no turrets fall just yet. Gonna be a great defense from the side of Indonesia. But for Malaysia, whenever they're in this kind of scenario, they just have so much more of an advantage due to Ecstatic just being on the Iesf. And we know that Indonesia are planning on banking on sustainability. I mean, Cine has sustainability. The Minotaur on Vivian has sustainability. Fumieko and Shell still. Even with the Inspire, that technically is an extra bit of sustain on hit with that battle spell. But against the Glowing One that's being built immediately by Ecstatic, it's a whole different story, man. There's just a lot of these regeneration tools cut down from Indonesia.
Which is why they have to really be smart when they weave in and weave out of these team fights, right? They need to figure out a way to kind of bait out those resources, bait out the real world manipulation from Ecstatic. Wait a second.
Viva goes in for a collision, but that's the whole team available to back her up. The Breath of the Ocean will zone everyone away, but that's the turret's presence already used up. Fumieko has been pushing the wave, but as of right now, she's just not having enough impact when it comes to that macro game. She can't push fast enough, and she can't rotate fast enough either.
Yeah, it's not as easy. It's not as straightforward now that we're entering the late game. Ladies and gentlemen, 17 minutes between both of these teams. Very equal when it comes down to it. At this point, the gold lead that Malaysia has, a 3k gold lead, will start to, the importance of it will start to sliver away. And now it comes down to the mind games, right? Who will be smarter when it comes down to these Lord takes? Because naturally, Indonesia, I don't think they want to go for a full 5v5. Maybe they look for a pick off instead. Maybe they look in for a pick over. But the fact that Fumieko is already posturing in that bush, and the fact that it looks like Malaysia want to go in for the collapse, it's not looking good. Let's see how they unfold and how they play this out.
Well, finally, Fumieko shows herself on the top side. And then look at Shell. Ooh, Abyss Walker forwards there, landing a big stun. But in the midst of all that, there's just so much pressure here for every single base turret of Indonesia that's so low. Annabelle conceals, but Shell spots her down. Vivian, though, is in the same situation. But look at the play coming in from Cine. The knock up there to try and break that immortality. Can they keep going here or not?
Oh!
Play. There's revenge. The Sandstorm from Bea, though. The lead Shell. No gold later available. Real manipulation being used as well from Malaysia to seal the deal right here. Rosemary chunking out damage, dishing out against the 10k of members, all the damage, and the chase comes through from Malaysia with the slows provided by Ecstatic. Seems to be the end of it. Fumieko chunked down, taken out. That's a maniac for Rosemary.
It's a wiped out, ladies and gentlemen, for Malaysia in this 18th minute. And it looks like they're looking for a comeback. 18 seconds left for Shell to respawn into the game as Rosemary is going to go through with that DHS in addition to wards in her kit to look for that straight push. And it looks like Malaysia will be able to force this to a game number 3. But hold your horses. We're going to make you feel the suspense. We're going to build up on the suspense as to how this game goes as you are forced to look at me and Arashi's beautiful face once again. Wow, again, right? Shell using that Inspire definitely not the best choice in this match. Annabelle, beautiful flicker backwards, Tyrus Rage Revenge. And she was able to catch Shell off guard. And then the combination, the synergy that was already there for Malaysia, the fact that they were able to loop that in with the Raging Sandstorm 2 just was the nail in the coffin for Indonesia in that team fight. I bet now they're starting to wonder, like, why didn't I go Purify instead?
It has to be in the back of their minds, but all things considered, I don't know if that would have made a difference, right? The fact that Bea immediately came through and just landed that Raging Sandstorm, that was a ton of damage. And just like that, the fact that they have a protect shell VIP composition just kind of shuts down their chances of winning without that gold laner, man. That is so unfortunate. Wow.
And we do have confirmation that the match already ended with Malaysia winning it with that push after that, wiped out that Maniac as well, coming through for Malaysia. And once again, we're going to game number 3. We wouldn't have it any other way here in the playoffs. There's no room for, clean sweeps. We want it to go, best of all the games. We want to see all the games. And, even the system couldn't handle how much Malaysia were dominating in that final sequence, right? Even the system didn't allow you guys to witness the violence. So we're just gonna tell you, okay? We're gonna, ease the pain a little bit. We're gonna give it to you a little bit softer, especially for all the Indonesian fans out there who were hoping to see a 2-0, especially with all the losses that we've been getting against this same region in the MLBB male scene. Are we looking at a comeback again? Are we looking at another reverse sweep story, that underdog story that we've been seeing here in the playoffs of Iesf?
Bro, that's gonna be very unexpected for sure. But on the bright side, apparently we have some highlights here. So hopefully that final sequence will be shown in the highlights as we get right into it. Let's see how both teams were just colliding, man. It's a relatively short game, all things considered, but it doesn't feel that way at all.
Yeah, even from the start, right? I think we were caught in that 14-minute mark, and then we were like, wow, it's been 14 minutes. Everything just felt so fast, so much action that I think even you were a little bit drained with energy, right? Or actually with so much action happening, we thought that it was already a 17-minute game at that 14-minute mark. But up until that very end, Malaysia stayed persistent. They still were active, looking for opportunities to capitalize over. And finally, after all the initial, I would say, success from Indonesia with the objectives, with the team fights, with the kills on the board, they were able to finally get that stun in with Annabelle as well as Bea in the final sequence. But here again, we do see that Vival was caught quite low. R was able to capitalize over that. I think at the very end, finally R picked up the Malefic Roar. But that was that big play with the Raging Sandstorm onto 2 people. And we thought that was the peak of Bea, right? And then she comes in later on. I hope we get to see the replay of that as well on a 5-man Raging Sandstorm.
That was later on the bottom side of the map, I think. But all throughout the game, man, it's just fights upon fights. I mean, even here, right? No info, no intel. Usually teams won't just go for it, but they're just trying to fight combo for combo. And look at that blazing duet here. Just immediately denied from the side of Indonesia. And that the play, man, the Spear of Destruction definitely is a great tool to have. And Shell was using it to its utmost potential. But at that point, she gets a bit too low. This was the moment you're talking about, Eterna, where Rosemary maybe could have gotten the kill, but unfortunately for him, he's the one who gets knocked into the wall and just completely shut down as Fumi Echo dives in and continues the cycle, man. It just keeps going.
Yeah. It was very... Oh, is this the moment? 10 minutes and it's not the moment yet, is it? Oh, it should be.
Oh, I think it is.
Actually, there it is, right? Annabelle goes in with the Tyrant's Rage Revenge Flicker. And then here we go. Raging Sandstorm. Boom. Flicker. And able to get 5 members. And just the follow-up damage was so easy, right? For R with the Blazing Duet into the backside. There was nobody really able to kind of punish that dive in with the Blazing Duet. And she was able to maximize on her damage output.
It's definitely a lot of damage from Bea, man. And here, the patience for Shell to just wait on the Spear of Destruction, and Malaysia making the call to immediately rush down the Lord. Those are the things that we've been saying needs to be done, but a lot easier said than done. And this was the overchase, and unfortunately, it just didn't work out for Indonesia there, losing Fumi Echo and then trying to defend. They were able to stave off the majority of the waves, but if you look at the towered HP, they're all so low. So Malaysia had a lot more pressure, and this was the play. Immediately, Shell just gets deleted. It doesn't matter how much healing, how much crowd control is used to try and protect if the damage is just too much. Eventually, Vivian and Viva were able to kind of equalize with a kill, but all things considered, with R on the cloth still alive, with Rosemary on the Roger just shooting and clawing members of Indonesia down. There's just no way for them to come out on top there in a long, drawn-out fight.
Okay, predictions for MVP now.
I gotta go Rosemary.
Okay, I think I'm gonna go Bea. Or Annabelle. Ooh, I can't decide. Everybody had their moment. Ooh, wait. So you're okay, you're gonna stick with Rosemary here?
I think so.
Man, yeah, she picked up the Maniac. Oh god, this is hard. Okay, I'll just stick with Bea. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's see our MVP for the second game in this best of 3 match. Now both of these teams are at match point. We will be seeing, is it Rosemary, is it Bea, is it Annabelle on the Kufra to pick up this MVP? Drum roll, please.
Drum roll.
Okay.
Rosemary. Arashi with the comeback of his own. 13-2 and 4. 90, almost 90,000 damage dealt. It's crazy because if you look at, if you saw how much damage the Iesf was doing, right? Supposedly, with all these fights, with all the back and forths, the Iesf actually did about 87, I believe. It was just a bit lower. But Rosemary was the highest damage dealer in the whole game. That's how much fighting was available for her to just immediately just steal away that spot. There was no sieges at all.
There wasn't. But I mean, okay, granted, I understand why Rosemary was able to get the MVP, but you know, an argument can be made for a lot of the other members too, right? Because technically, in the final sequence of how they're able to, you know, put in the final nail in the coffin for Indonesia was on the play made by Annabelle on the Kufra, which basically Vivian was unable to do in the first game where she picked up the Kufra. So big shout out to Annabelle on the Kufra, big shout out as well to Bea. Despite not being put on the Paquito that we saw was such a power pick for her in game number 1. In game number 2, she pulls up something like the Khalid that did so well. Just really capitalizing over the overconfidence from Indonesia in game number 2.
Yeah, the composition in the beginning already seems a bit overconfident. Only a single real damage dealer, and even a Kadira, right, an assassin. Considering the fact that R on the Claude is mobile and with the Purify as well, there isn't really a very easy target for her to look for in the middle of those fights. That definitely played a big role as well, because once the skills are already blasted out, that's the end of the impact for Cine. Compared to game 1, where on the low you can just keep tossing out dispersions and rotations.
And on that note, let's take a look at the post-game stats as well, right? Specifically, this is special for you guys back at home, ladies and gentlemen. We have statistics prepared for you guys to have a little bit of a sneak peek as to what Arashi was talking about earlier on, right? You talked about the damage that was given. We do see a little bit more information on that 18-minute game, 47 seconds. It was almost a 19-minute game. You can see, like, this was one of the things that was quite confusing, Arashi. In the early stage of the game, Indonesia was leading with kills, and they were also leading with objectives. But again, Malaysia was actually still holding on to the gold lead.
Just because of that style, right? The fights that kept happening, for the most part, I mean, if you look at the gold obtained from minions and creeps, there isn't a lot of farming. The gold gain for minions and creeps for the side of Indonesia is a lot lower still. So that's another addition to the advantage that Malaysia were able to actually get by winning out in these fights. It really felt like in the end, it's a damage output issue, because for Malaysia, even when we did see R get taken out or get zoned away from a fight, The Khalid can do damage, Rosemary can do damage, so can Ecstatic on the Iesf. So despite the fact that they have no real big front line, maybe even was the cause that baited Indonesia to just keep going in, because they know that in theory there's not a single hero on the side of Malaysia can be called a pure tank. The Kufra maybe, but more used for utility, right? So I think Indonesia just kept going in because they know that whoever they connect with that gets bursted done by Sini and Shell, or gets hit by Vival, that could be yet another kill that they can put in their pocket. So unfortunately, until the late game, it makes the win condition for Malaysia just that much more straightforward, and that's the last thing you want to do against a team as dangerous and as competent as these teams we're watching right now, because they will immediately identify it and go for it. You can see that from the middle of the game, Bea and the rest of Malaysia are already having their eyes on Shell, just waiting for the right time to catch her out, or at least zone her away so that their team can actually get the advantage.
You know, at least if they want to go for the commitment onto a 4-1, as in fully commit onto the defense for Shell, at least have Shell pick up something a little bit more defensive for her battle spell, right? Because I felt like the Inspire just again was way too greedy.
But I mean, that's a problem that can be seen from the draft as well, right? The fact that she was the sole damage dealer. Remember,
Exactly.
the Kadira can't really help out with that either. So maybe she was pressured to go for the Inspire to just to get a bit more damage. And to be fair, in the 1v2s in the early game, we saw that Inspire was critical in ensuring that she was able to survive and even outplay like a gank 1v2. So there is value to be had, but I feel like overall, as a draft, that's where the problem really began.
Yeah, I agree. It's just such a shame, right? Because sure, you win out in these 1v2s, and there were so many moments where Malaysia tried to go for the pickass onto Shell, but she was able to outplay, like you mentioned. But in the grand scheme of things, if you're the sole damage dealer and you don't have the Purify with so much dive on the side of Malaysia, it just makes the winning condition for Malaysia a lot easier, right? Because you have the Khalid to dive in, you also have the Kufra to dive in. There's just so many tools that Malaysia could have utilized to, take away that single winning condition that Indonesia had, which was, protect the Moskov at all costs, protect Shell at all costs, and it really just didn't pay off for them.
And I have to say, despite the fact that there was a Uranus that's usually so pesky to deal with, I don't know if that's just the way it's being played or the condition of the game overall, but Malaysia relatively did not really have a lot of issues dealing with the macro play, the push coming in from the Uranus on the far side. It could be because the Uranus wasn't going for a two-wave cut, a double wave cut in the base, or something of that nature. But they just want to fight aggression with aggression. Even if they can't really go for the macro play and match that push, they go straight for the Lord and they just focus it down. And if Indonesia wants to go for a 50-50, they're very happy to oblige for that 50-50. And even if they don't get the Lord, they are going to go and chase down the members of Indonesia. I feel like that's just the way they plan out the game, at least in the mid game, right? It doesn't matter. Just go for the Lord immediately. If they don't try and fight us, we get the Lord. If they come in late, we get the Lord. If it's a 50-50, then it's a 50-50. But looking at the compositions, we can just take out their members one by one. And we have chases, we have movement speed coming in from the Roger, we have slows coming in from Ecstatic on the Iesf as well. There's a lot of ways for Malaysia to catch up to Indonesia.
And they've been catching up real good, right? Technically, they can go in for a reverse sweep once again, something that we've been talking about earlier on as well. I mean, we both predicted the Philippines to win in match number 1 in Cambodia reverse sweep, and they were the favorites to win that match and one of the favorites to win the entire championship. And now we're coming into our second semifinals here in the playoffs, and we also predicted Indonesia to win, and Indonesia did pick up game number 1, and then Malaysia equalized in game number 2. That's a big momentum shift for Malaysia. That's some mental fortitude coming through from Malaysia, and that might just actually drop the momentum that Indonesia is so used to, right? Because it's been so long since they dropped a game, Arashi. It's been so long since they dropped a game. It was always them versus everybody. Them always sitting up at top. Imagine having that be like the history of you with your team, and suddenly a team takes a game from you.
Definitely a mental shocker. And for Indonesia, they gotta recover here. By all means, they did lose, but their composition, like we said, is quite unorthodox, right? It's quite unusual from the composition itself to the selections, like the Uranus that came out of nowhere. You know, we were expecting playmakers, we were expecting big crowd control, not a lumbering giant that just regens the whole time. So now that we are in the final game here, this is where all the cards are on the table, man. The chips are absolutely down.
We'll see. Arlet export gonna be banned out now for Indonesia as they are back in first pick, ladies and gentlemen. The Ling gonna be respected once again. One of the highlights we would say for this matchup is the fact that the Roger was left open for Malaysia to pick up earlier on, and with the Roger picking up that MVP as well, with the flexibility that the Roger also has. I think we've been explaining about this time and time again. That flex potential in the drafts has just been so valuable for teams that are able to get their hands on the Roger. So with Malaysia in the next few bans, I think last time they went in for Chip, Ling, and the Yuzong. The Chip was actually left open. Now the Harith gets banned out, and now what is left? I think Vexana was a choice last time around, but I don't think they should go for the Vexana here. Luo Yi is also still an option to take here, Ashi.
I think the Luo Yi can still be a great option. Oh man, we have to see though, because I feel like Malaysia has just made a very clear statement that if you want to go toe to toe and play the rough game, the brawl, we have you beat. That's our game, right? The Langgar style. That's our calling card, not you guys. So I think for Indonesia, there might be an adaptation here to try and go for a more calculated style that might really work out. But to do so, you're gonna be forced to pick some of these safer heroes that can play a bit more defensive. And considering that, Malaysia has the Yuzong and the Fredrin now, it's gonna be quite difficult.
Yeah, the Fredrin and the Yuzong has been picked up, but now with the Luo Yi still open, Indonesia, if they want to go in for the early fight, if they want to go in for the early objectives, pick up a Terizla right before it gets banned out into the second phase, especially in that 1v1 against the Yuzong. And by the way, for Indonesia, this Terizla is flex. Terizla has been played in the mid lane by Cine, so that's also a layer of flexibility that this team has with the Roger. Meanwhile, for Malaysia, we know where they are going, right? Fredrin jungle, Yuzong in the EXP lane.
Joke's on you, it's a gold lane Yuzong. Just kidding. Imagine though, right? Imagine. But for now, for Indonesia, they're going for this aggressive style. They have the Roger, and they're defaulting back to this Mathilda. This is a tool that is great if you don't want to go for a straightforward fight, when you want to make it confusing. You know, the last game was confusing enough, but if Indonesia wants to make it a bit more confusing, the Guiding Wind can be a valuable tool, and they're able to get their hands on the Terizla. It was, I believe it was it banned away? I believe it was respected for sure.
It was banned out by Indonesia in the second phase.
Right, so they get their hands on that main frontliner. They can contest grounds against the aggressive composition of Malaysia. But for Malaysia, they want to go for the Kufra again. We talked about how Annabelle was able to secure quite literally a game-winning play for their side. Now you're seeing a lot of emphasis on the gold lane here. There's a chance that Malaysia are trying to pick up the cloth for themselves. We saw R perform really well on it. Taking it away from Shell will be great as well. Kind of forcing the Roger to be put in that gold lane can still be an angle that Malaysia will be trying to do instead.
Also remember, right, Luo Yi, Valentina, and Faramis have been left untouched so far. That still also can cause a huge impact into their gameplay. But again, the Natan gets also banned away as well as the Kalar. So they are eliminating these choices for the gold lane. Arashi, I hope you're not right. I hope it's not a Yuzong in
No
the
way,
gold
come
lane,
on.
right? I mean, there is still a possibility for like the Brody to show up. I think the Clint has done quite well, but that was before the patch. For the MLBB women's scene, that was before the patch. We saw the Clint do really well in the early game, and could definitely benefit from the Malefic Gun. By the way, if they want to explore new items.
Oof. Do you want to explore new items when all of this is at stake right now with Turna? I feel like it's a bit too
Yeah.
delicate. In fact, I assume that
True.
both teams will be pulling out their A game. They went with the Faramis though, so suspecting that Malaysia will be going for that death ball style yet again. All things considered, though, the Minotaur is still available, but no, both teams already have a roamer, so that won't really be the case. I feel like the mid lane here becomes the big question. If they want to go for fights like that, the Lo Yi still is a very solid pick. If they don't want to go for it, then maybe something like a Lilia with a bit more security, a bit more output potential. I'm just saying, by the way, if you want something crazy, imagine if a Kagura shows up right now. That's also gonna be like a wow moment, but I don't think so.
Yeah, we saw the Kagura come out earlier on, and it was a monster. I think I'm gonna have nightmares about it. But they go for something quite standard. Valentina, to be able to capitalize over these resources that Indonesia have gone for. We have the circling eagle from the Matilda. We also have the penalty zone. Whoa!
No way.
Okay,
Huh?
okay. Guys, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, sorry, I went a little bit informal there, but Zask recently had a change. Right, Arashi? Are you familiar with this change that Zask now has?
Wait, which change are you talking about?
So, now, oh man, we haven't seen Zask for so long, I don't even remember the names of the skills, but the little alien that pops in, it now does
The Nightmare
constant... See, Clint! Right? Yeah, the Nightmare Spawn does constant DPS damage and also has a stun if you pair it in with skill 2 of Zask. And now if he wants to go in for the ultimate, you don't have to... That one, Dominator's Descent, you don't have to place it where the Nightmare Spawn is, but the... What is it called? Dominator's Descent will follow where you put the Dominator's Descent, and then the Nightmare Spawn will follow. So it's a lot more versatile when you go in for these plays, and it's such a good lane bully. Oh man, I didn't expect this aspect to come up, but man, I'm excited, Arashi. Sorry,
I mean, I occasionally play the Zask as well, to be honest, but yeah, I guess those changes will definitely make a big difference. The carry though, out of nowhere from Malaysia to try and deal with the Terizla, that makes sense, but now it's a bit different, man. For Indonesia, that Zask pick will just give so much fighting power, because technically you can go into the Dominator's Descent, you can get out of it, and it's still gonna stay there and just keep doing damage, right? Along with the Nightmare Spawn. So there are ways for Cine now to do some damage, do some mind games, and be relatively safe. That's the big part that's kind of important right here. So it's going to be interesting how the lane is going to go, because the Nightmare Spawn can be cleared relatively fast. And if you just keep putting it down without any thought, technically it gives your opponent gold. So, you got to be a bit more calculative about it.
Sure. That's also definitely a factor that we also need to, keep in mind. But man, I was thinking that this Zask would pop in the gold lane, Arashi.
Really?
Well, yeah, because I see it as a good lane bully, right? The range is insane, right? That early game damage is also quite insane. Good clear as well. If we're looking at a possible bully in the gold lane, if we're thinking about a mage as a bully in the gold lane, then, we've seen a lot of Changas recently, but I thought maybe the Zask would fit quite well in the gold lane, but we are going to see in the mid lane. I'll take what I can get, ladies and gentlemen. For the final match in the playoffs of this best of 3 series, the decider game as to who will be able to move forward, who will be able to get that last slot in for WEC all the way in Riyadh in the later portion of this year. Everything hangs in the balance, and everything is going to depend on how this game goes. Will it be Indonesia moving forward as one of the tournament favorites, or will it be Malaysia being able to take down the titans of the story and go in as underdogs with Cambodia to Riyadh?
Well, first of all, you can feel the spirit coming in from Indonesia because they are going with 3 war cries in their emblem setup. They are here to try and do as much damage as possible. And you can see the Nightmare spawn already proving to be an absolute nuisance for the side of Malaysia. And for now, it's going to be a bit similar, a bit safe. Look at that. Tyrant's Revenge, though. Vivo will be actually unable to secure that litho due to that interference. For now, Ecstatic. Whoa, hang on a minute.
See?
Dude, yeah, Ecstatic is taking a lot more damage than I think is healthy for her. But we have to wait and see here, especially in the gold lane and EXP lane. It's a bit of a skill matchup, and whoever comes out on top will dictate how the team is able to really move around the map. And I think a lot of eyes are definitely on that gold lane.
I mean, technically, the gold lane isn't too much of a skill matchup, right? Wouldn't you think that the Clint does better in the early game as compared to the carry?
Yeah, especially in the gold lane, it's a bit more one-sided. The EXP lane, though, is where you can see this dueling happening. But considering the roamers occasionally drop by to that gold lane, is there a chance for teams to really swing the balance in their favor? Rosemary, though, coming in for a gank right there. Fumi Echo already forced to use the flicker, so the flicker penalty zone combo won't be available.
I live. Oh, wait a second. Rosemary goes in very deep here onto Fumi Echo.
No escape tools. Oppressors Wrath tanked up. But look at the response though. Viva with the damage coming in. It's a double. Going to be traded 2 for 1, 1 for 1 so far. Look at the rest of the team though, jumping into it. Ecstatic. No circling eagle just yet. But Viva is on the hunt. Gets the killing spree. Indonesia starting out strong with that Roger pick.
Definitely. And even in the gold lane, right, we do see R almost going in for a recall with how much damage she's receiving. Let's jump back into here as Annabelle looks in for another pick.
Penalty zone owes Annabelle though, but Bea, the menace, goes in towards the back line. Won't be able to find anything so far. Pulls back away. And even for game 3 right now, you can see that it's about respawning and going straight into the fighting once more for both these teams.
Yeah, the brawls, so brawl-centric, so brawl-heavy. And going back into the mid lane, right? Ecstatic is on the Valentina, who naturally has a little bit more of a regen when she goes in for her dashes, right? Her abilities. But even then, the damage coming in from Cindy on the Zask has been just a pain to deal with as she tries to go in for the clear. But Cindy falling a little bit behind in the rotations, and so you can see Ecstatic going to be able to have a little bit more say in that top lane to try and punish Shell and give the carry a little bit of a fighting chance in these early parts of the game.
It's a little taken by the side of Malaysia though. Vivian looking for a play here towards Annabelle. It's going really deep though. I don't think they're ready for that. Rosemary waiting to try and ambush to make a play for the team as R and Shell just keep duking it out. You can see that both teams are playing a lot more careful though, but Rosemary with the Thunderbolt rush hinting at her willingness to try and go for a big fight. Look at the stun onto Annabelle with a Domineer's Descent as well. Rosemary tries to get involved, tries to peel, but look at the damage. Cine forced to back away already. That's a great sequence for both these teams, showing that they are absolutely aware of the split-second fight decisions.
Yeah, the adaptations are going to be very important for both of these teams, as Indonesia so far does have a gold lead, but it's a very small one, right? 901k here in the first 4 minutes of the game. Both of these teams are once again going to be collapsing onto the turtle that will spawn in under 6 seconds. Rosemary level 7 at the moment, Vival a level ahead, but it looks like Rosemary has been getting a lot more retributions down. Vival kind of struggling in that regard, so in this 50-50, we'll see who will be able to get that better trade as Annabelle already with the charge.
Jumping onto Fumi Echo, but not fully committing onto it. Trying to just reduce that HP bar. It will be so much more difficult to deal with the body of Smith. Or Fumi Echo, but look at the both. Oh, penalty zone into the pit though with the Black Dragon from right above everyone. The Petrific comes through as well. The turtle falls into the hands of Indonesia. But look at the Domineer's Descent doing damage as much as possible. But Malaysia kite back away from it. Circling Eagle still from Vivian to try and get onto Rosemary as Viva picks up a kill. Comes in for the hunt, but Vivian steals it away. Indonesia asserting dominance right here in the team fighting prowess.
1-for-2 trade, ladies and gentlemen. You can even consider it a 1-for-3 trade, with Indonesia being able to pick up that neutral objective. So a perfect turtle so far, as we're going to take a look into the replay as to how this went down, because initially Malaysia did have a proper setup, but with the dominator's descent coming through, the damage, the zoning away from the Yuzong as well was very imperative to how this actually panned down. Unfortunately, they couldn't land in an additional kill onto Vival. That could have been a 5-0-1 for her, and of course the Roger will take all the kills she can get to go in for that snowball that is required for her to have a little bit more dominance in this early game. But of course, already at a 4-0-1 is looking quite bright for her as Annabelle goes in for another charge.
Ooh.
It looks like Malaysia are going to be quick to get in, but what happened in the opposite side of the map? That's a trade over, as Malaysia going to be picking up that turret as well in the bottom side of the map.
All things considered, great trade for Malaysia right there, to understand that they're not really winning out in these fights, going for trades. But look at Cine here, unsatisfied with only a single turret, going for one more along with Shell. They might just take it down purely by brute forcing it, even though there's no minions. The Nightmare Respawn will allow them to go for it, but Annabelle goes in to try and go for a punish. The Black Dragon form from Bea comes in as well. Cine, no real Dominator's Descent just yet. Won't be jumped on though, fortunately for her. And Indonesia, they get a lot of wins there in that sequence.
That was quite lucky, would you not think? Oh, what is that damage onto Ecstatic? She's got so low, and she's gonna force in a recall. Not the best time to go for a recall as you want to go and set up for the next neutral objective, but this will be another turtle given over to the hands of Indonesia. A perfect turtle as Annabelle fails to land it onto Fumi Echo here. And here, Malaysia looks like they're looking for a trade. In a 3v1 situation, Fumi Echo, how is she faring? Meanwhile, in the mid lane,
both teams just going for dives at the same time. In the mid lane though, it's going to be Bea following through with the death double kill for Vival. And on top, Fumi Echo does not care, man. A Terizla under the turret? Who you fooling? She ain't going down. Malaysia rotating to try and save their turret, but Indonesia already working down on it. Shell was at the end of the train there, leaving the danger zone. But Annabelle is struggling to really find the right targets here for her team.
6k gold lead now built in for Indonesia. They are ruthless in the last few minutes of this game, really taking it into their hands with collapsing onto these structures, collapsing onto these objectives really quickly. And that's something that we've been used to seeing from Indonesia. So they really have their eyes on the prize here. They're really taking this as serious as they possibly can. But Vivian will be able to escape out of that initiation play from Annabelle. And again, those spawns are just so great at opening up these maps, opening up these bushes that time and time again have been capitalized over for Mass. And we have yet to see a big play from Bea on this Yuzong.
I mean, we saw a big Black Dragon form Furious Dive Petrify combo, but it just wasn't enough right now considering how aggressively Indonesia is playing. And the fact that Cine is just not vulnerable at all due to the Dominator's Descent just makes the game a lot different than a usual game, I would say. Now, Vivian picks up the Enchanted Talisman as well, so the cooldown on the Guiding Wind will be something that Malaysia needs to take notice of, as Vival, even though the Lord is spawning soon, she's the one sent over to clear. And look at the damage of her Rosemary. She's trying to sustain back up, dashing out of the danger zone. And as ordered, Eterna, there's going to be a jump on towards the backline of Indonesia. But in the end, Bea cannot get it done. R follows soon as well. And that's going to be Annabelle left alone in the back. Shell spots her, tries to go for it as well. But she won't agree for it. They just go straight for the Lord.
Beautiful penalty zone and beautiful follow-up, as it looks like Vivian is on the chase there to get to Annabelle. They know it's a little bit too risky and they will fall back. But in the grand scheme of things, that was a big win once again for Indonesia in the 10th minute of the game. And even if Malaysia stood fast, stayed stoic in that team fight, Vival is a few levels ahead here. She's actually 3 levels ahead of Rosemary at this point. So not necessarily a 50-50 in that Retribution battle, despite Rosemary's success on her Retri. It's just she's falling far too behind She needs to catch up on that EXP to eventually go in for this, but that's going to be the first Lord of the game spawning in the mid lane, ladies and gentlemen, and it looks like Malaysia are just waiting patiently to go in for the defense.
Both teams just waiting around here, trying to make sure they stop the Lord from doing damage to the turrets, but Indonesia will zone away the members of Malaysia and ensure that that is what happens. It's a three-wave push right now, and with the Nightmare spawn used to try to buy a bit more time, do a bit more damage, it's going to be a penalty zone, though Rosemary won't be able to use the Princess Wrath, and so will Ecstatic just immediately clawed down, denied. They trying to go into the Black Dragon form, but look at the HP bars, immediately shredded down. That's the stun coming in as well. Indonesia barreling through immediately. They pick up one more kill, and they're going straight for the crystal. The Lord untouched. Indonesia at 11 minutes has shut down Malaysia.
And it's official, ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia take that final slot here in the playoffs and secure their ticket to WEC Riyadh. They have qualified from the Opens and they have pushed forward through the group stage, pushed forward through the playoffs, and will be the representatives of Indonesia in the international scene once again at WEC. But that was so close for Malaysia. I think all of the Indonesian fans all around the world are actually shaking at this moment, right? Seeing how far and how much Malaysia had dominance over Indonesia. It was so close, Arashi, but a 2-1 victory for Indonesia at the end of the day.
Dude, the Zask pick, I think, really threw him off, man. It's so weird because now the mid laner is no longer vulnerable. There's an extra bit of damage coming through. And even if Cine leaves, the damage is still coming, still being dealt. And technically, when she dies, she spawns another Nightmarish spawn as well. A lot of different, like a new different look. It's almost like going up against a Kagura, but a different style. She even landed the big stun in the end right there to really start off the ending sequence. We got to take a look at some of the highlights, man. That happened so fast. 11 minutes.
Yeah, that's why I was so hyped. I was so hyped seeing the Zask being picked up. I was like, all right. I saw promise in the Zask after the patch, and I thought maybe we'll see it in the gold lane, but in the mid lane, I'll take what I can get. So let's take a look at those highlights, ladies and gentlemen. Producer, please cue us in because we just can't wait to see that dominating game from Indonesia after Malaysia was able to force that game number 3 from game number 2.
This was that early fight engagement there where they were jumping on Fumi Echo, but that's the problem when you're trying to gank a Terizla. It usually takes just so much time for you to really secure the kill that the backup really arrives. And in true Malaysian fashion, it just becomes an all-out brawl yet again. And Bea, now that the ultimate just isn't as surprising, as fast-paced as a Raging Sandstorm or a Paquito's Knockout Strike, it's a whole different style that she was struggling to really use to try and punish Vival, Shell, and Cine, and it's partially due to the selection of heroes as well.
For sure. And the Roger once again being a nuisance, showing us once again why this Roger is such a big priority. Sure, it does great in the gold lane, but as you can see here in the jungle, that's where the Roger currently just really shines and excels. So much snowballing potential in the early stage of the game, so much utilization. You can utilize this Roger for more neutral objectives. You can also utilize this Roger in for a little bit more kill pressure. It's just an all-arounder, very fast clear as well, and that's just why the Roger has been always respected or banned out from the first phase of the drafts.
When that fight, Cine, again, it's almost like a Valentina in a way that the damage is just so subtle. You don't really notice it, and before you know it, you get just immediately deleted. And right here with the Lord in Tao, R tries to clear it out, but it's just too difficult. And look at that stun, man. The Dominator's descent, jump to the front for that stun was what started it off. And you're seeing the consequences of this Zask, right? The fact that you're not used to it, you're not used to the range, the skill set. That is what Indonesia has pulled out of the hat for their, surprise magic trick. And they have taken Malaysia out in dominant fashion after 2 very intense games.
No matter what happens, no matter the results that we receive today for Malaysia, I still want to stand true and just, announce it for everyone in the world to know. that I'm a big fan of Bea, and I hope I get to see her in the future, man. Because
Oh,
sure, her presence in game number 3 was not as vivid as game number 1 and game number 2, but man, game number 1 and game number 2, her Paquito and her Khalid, that alone was enough to really just send shivers down my spine, and I think it's gonna follow me into my nightmares, as is the Kogura that we saw earlier on. But this is the match summary. 11 minutes after an 18-minute game, after a 19-minute game for game number 3, Indonesia meant business. They pulled out all their cards. They took it as serious as possible. Their head was in the game, and they were able to close it out in 11 minutes with Shell Black on the Clint. This was one of the heroes that we saw her utilize back at SPS, one of her high priority heroes, especially if she wants an early game lead. When the Moscovs, when the Harris are banned out, she usually falls back onto this Clint pick that we've seen her find a lot of success on. And Cine, like you mentioned with the Zask, was just so clutch. One of the main issues that Malaysia was facing, especially on the Valentine, I think the first wave that hit, right? The first attempt at the clear between Ecstatic and Cine was very telling as to the potential of Zask. And hopefully we'll see what the Zask has to offer later on in the future, whether or not maybe the MLB men's will pick it up or not. But the MVP is ready. Arashi, any predictions?
I think it has to be Cine, man. No bias. There you go. That's the Zask we were talking about, 3-0 and 12. And man, there were some moments in this game where I guess Malaysia are just used to that brawl, and they stand in that Domineer's descent. And even the tankiest of members, they get shredded down slowly but surely, man. That the beam that comes from the Domineer's descent and the Nightmare respawn, it doesn't tick per second, it's like it's a straight laser, and you just gotta get out.
That's one of the main changes to the Zask, one of the main updates to the Zask, right? And I thought that that's why maybe the Zask could be viable in this meta. But Arashi, as an analyst and of course as a mage player, look at the items, right? Sure, a penetration boots, that's fine and dandy, but her next item was Divine Glaive? Like, who does that? Do you normally itemize straight into the Divine Glaive without going for base magical damage?
I mean, I don't, but considering the hit of the Zask, right, you saw that even straight with the Divine Glaive, there was a lot of base damage already available. So I guess considering the fact that there's a lot of beefy members from the side of Malaysia, that's the option she goes for, because the base damage is good enough, and the Divine Glaive gives you magical power as well. So it's not about nuking them outright, it's about placing down these spawns and the Domineer's Descent, the DD, at the right position. And as long as it just stands there,
Ds, yeah.
Malaysia will be forced to either take a lot of damage over time eventually, or they're going to be forced to use some time and some effort, some damage to clear out the summon, right? The spawn. And I think that is such a perfect solution for a team that just loves to brawl, right? Bring in another factor, right? Bring in more people, technically.
So let's bring the people that won that match, right, Arashi? Let's call Indonesia right now. We'll see who we're going to be talking to, but ring ring, Indonesia, are you there? Hello. Everybody. Hang on. I gotta adjust my audio again.
Right.
All right. Cool. Congratulations, Indonesia, for that decisive victory again. I think we've seen you a lot in all these interviews, especially in the Mlbb female scene, but how did it feel to go that far into a full best of 3? Like, did you expect it to go full best of 3, or did you think that you would win it in a 2-0 victory?
Apa artinya? Expect nggak sampai 2-0 atau 2-1? Enggak, karena kita belum pernah ketemu. Pernah belum? Nggak tahu, udah yang lupa.
Actually, we did not expect it to be like 2-1. In the first game, the Baksha pick.
Oh, yeah.
It was unexpected. Yeah, it was unexpected because the Baksha pick was out of the box. So especially where we are using Link, so the Baksha is really a surprising pick. And yeah,
menyulitkan Kufra.
And
Wow.
Kufra feeder. No, troll. No.
She's saying Vivian is saying that it made it very hard for her to utilize the Kufra, which is actually something that we kind of noticed, right? It looked like the Kufra was struggling a bit. It was very uncharacteristic to the Vivian that we know and love. But by the way, where's Shell? Shell mana?
Shell mana? Indonesia tuh. Shell mana?
No.
Where's she hiding?
At enemy's base.
Oh, okay. Big flex there. Arashi, maybe you have the next question?
I think we gotta ask the question that everyone else is asking about. Like, where did the zest come from, man? Whose idea was that?
Das dari mana?
Chini will be tell you.
Hero
Okay.
power.
Please do.
Oh.
Scream.
He says it's her hero power 100% win rate.
Wow. I mean, you saw the effect in
Okay.
those fights, man. It's a great solution against the aggressive fighting composition. What did the coaching staff have to say what was going on there? Did you say like, I want to pick Zask? Or did the coach go like, hey, yo, the Zask is like a power pick for you. Like, why don't you bring it out? Like, whose call was it? What was the coaching staff's reaction?
Yeah, because I saw the game was going to 1-1, and I think it's time to we bring our secret weapon.
No.
Oh, nice.
We have so many secret kitchen.
Secret kitchen.
Weapon.
Oh, okay. Secret weapon. She meant secret weapon, but she said secret kitchen. Okay, very interesting. By the way, is that Susu Gajah? Is that your coach right now? Susu Gajah?
Yes. Elephant milk.
Oh, okay. And is who's in front of Susu Gajah? Is it Dewa?
It is there.
Oh, okay. So this is literally this is literally like Team Vitality lineup, Arashi.
Yeah, and fun fact, I actually met with Susugaja and Dewa a while back, and they seemed really confident. So, seeing how this match played out, was this according to your expectations, or were you actually, quite nervous, quite worried? Because this is they decided to get that final title that you guys don't have yet, right? The IESF title.
So long. Can you?
Oh, do you expect the match to be that close? Were you worried?
Our coach is overconfident.
Yeah, they're too confident.
I see.
Yes.
And they
Sounds
got
like it.
outdrafted by a Baksha.
Yeah. And my coach
our
also.
is just to our enemies, please don't ban Link. Because people cannot use Link.
Oh, that's right, baby.
I see.
All right.
Any
Were
other
you-
follow-up
were you-
questions right here?
I have a one more question, right? In game number 2, when Malaysia won, were you guys nervous? Was there a moment where you're like, okay, we've been undefeated for so long, we've been winning for so long, Malaysia finally looks like they're kind of leveling with us? Was there a moment in your heads individually like, okay, we're in a bit of trouble, I think Malaysia can win this match?
Ada nggak ketakutan kalah?
No, not at all.
No.
But we said it's time to use our zest. It's time to bring out our
Still.
secret weapon.
All right. So final question, Team Indonesia, do you have any messages to your fans, your worldwide fans out there that are anticipating your presence at WEC in Riyadh?
Yeah.
Pesan-pesan Vi.
Vivian would like to say something to the
Okay.
international fans.
But
Vivian harus ngomong pakai bahasa Inggris ya.
something you will waiting for a long time.
Ulang. Maksud TV kalau mau lihat kalah.
Bukan. If you want me talking too much with English, you must waiting for any hours. Bener nggak?
Just
Okay.
Lama gitu lah.
Lama dia.
tadi udah benar.
I see.
Okay. I mean, we'll be waiting. We'll be waiting at WEC for Vivian, okay? for her message in English. But thank you so much once again, Team Indonesia. Thank you so much for your performance. It was exceptional as well. Congratulations and have a great rest, because the next time we'll be seeing you at Riyadh. So prepare more strats. We're excited to see the Zask again. Okay? So goodbye. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon.
No one to waiting.
No one's waiting. Oh man, I swear
Wow.
their interview and the interview from Team Indonesia on the male scene was also as chaotic, by the way.
Oh yeah? Quite interesting, man. I mean, it's great to see that they're in great spirits though, right? They did say that they weren't too worried, too nervous. We'll take them at face value for now. But yeah, it's great to see that they're that confident. They're still united. And it didn't seem like they were really under a lot of pressure, right? It's like a day in the office. And they're going to need that composure if they want to go, again, out to the international stage. Because at that point, they are the hunted, right? They are the ones with the targets on their back, like the best team. Beat them first, and then you can talk, is what some people would say.
And it's great that they are still as confident as that, right? Because even for us as casters, we were looking at the game and we were kind of like, okay, maybe this is the moment that like literally everybody has been kind of anticipating, the moment where Indonesia falls down finally after so many years of dominance. But I mean, even there, they were making jokes about the coach. It was the coach's fault. You don't need to bang the Ling against us because none of us can play the Ling properly. So they were still in very high spirits, and that just shows the confidence that they have coming into the next portion of ISF. But ladies and gentlemen, I think this does mark the end of the Asian qualifiers. We've been accompanying you with the male scene, and now we're coming to wrap up the women's scene, and it is official. Congratulations to Indonesia, and of course congratulations to Cambodia for winning it out here in the playoffs, being able to make it all the way from the group stage and now qualifying for those tickets to Riyadh WEC over the 9 teams, Arashi, right? We mentioned about the 9 teams that started, and now it's Indonesia and Cambodia moving forward. So we have an underdog story with Cambodia, and of course Indonesia as one of the tournament favorites. What do you think, Arashi? Any final statements that you want to go for before we close this out?
I gotta say, I'm really enjoying like the development of the women's scene. I think every time I get a chance to cast the lady scene, I always say the same thing, but they really are improving at a very rapid pace. I think if you go back a couple of years ago, no one would believe that game was played by the ladies team, right? That's not a dig at the ladies, by the way. That's just the way it was back then. So I'm looking forward to different strats, different picks altogether. And if they can really separate, like develop a whole different meta that's just like completely different to the male scene, I feel like that's a very welcome situation as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing Team Indonesia go to the next level. And I really want to see if they can actually do it, right? They get the full gauntlet and go for the snap.
Yeah. Thank you, Arashi. Once again, it's been a pleasure to cast with you today, but we're going to wrap it up here as, we close the Asian qualifiers finally for the online stage, right? We'll see you at the offline stage. So on behalf of Arashi as well, we want to thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you all very soon. Thank you so much. You guys have been watching the ISF Asian Regional Qualifiers. We'll see you in the next part of ISF.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Asian Regional Qualifiers for ISF 2024, qualifying to Riyadh. We already saw earlier Myanmar take on Thailand, and also before that match, we got to see Cambodia go up against Thailand. But we're going to end things today on day number 3 of the Asian Regional Qualifiers with some MLBB women. So we got you a banger of a match. Technically tied right now in the groups. We got Myanmar taking on Philippines for MLBB Women's. I'm here together with Naisu to bring you guys this incredible match. So, Naisu, how you feeling, man, after casting the previous match? Myanmar getting it done up against Thailand.
The men's matches have been really fun to watch, of course, and I think the same can be said for the previous matches we've seen so far from women's. Remember, if you guys missed it, we opened up the Asian Championships, this whole leg with a whole day of MLBB women's. And it was fun to see some of the newer teams, newer nations, of course, play it out. But I think a lot of people have had their eyes here, especially on these two teams in Myanmar and Philippines, especially, so far from what we've seen, even the Indonesian female team that we got to see in the past couple days really perform. So now I think a lot of people on the live stream now want to see Philippines compete here. And of course, Myanmar, just as strong as their men team is, we'll see if they're able to, go toe-to-toe with a powerhouse team like the Philippines is. And really, I want to see exactly what they bring to the table with this new patch and everything that we've been seeing so far, man. Like, I don't even know. Meta isn't completely set up, but we're getting a better picture of it. And I think it's in a great position.
That's definitely something I think that we'll see here, right? How both teams actually try to utilize the new meta, because for the MLBB women's stage and the men's stage, it just feels like, for the meta at least, it's a bit different, right? For MLBB women's, we see more of those brawls early on for neutral objectives as well, but maybe sometimes as well, they like to go towards the mid to late game. They like to go for the Xavier picks, some of these late game picks in the mid lane as well. Not so much as we see in the MLBB men's, because in MLBB men's, it's all about getting an early game composition, at least for the trio mid. But then for the gold lane, we have those weak sides. We do have those scaling heroes. But let's welcome Team Myanmar first here. We got Lin, Luna, Lin X, Naing, we got Wint, Chikoshi Lin, Su Ku Zin, Yadanar Hlang, and Chue K Zin.
Wow, I like that. Just use your surname as your IGN. That is probably the easiest way to go about it. How did you pronounce that? Hlang?
Hlang?
Is that right? Hlang?
That's how, yeah, Hlang. Hlang?
That's what I'm going. I'm going with that, Hlang. All right. This lineup, though, for Myanmar, I think you put it in a good perspective there. We got to see if, based on what we saw from Myanmar men's and the history and experience that team has, that region has, we know that for a while they were a region that a lot of people saw as like a dark horse, and they didn't really know exactly how they would perform on on an international stage, if you will. And so far, I would say now people see Myanmar as a very big threat, very strong region. And, maybe not as many people have seen the female team play. So this is a good opportunity for those people who haven't seen that to see if it's the same tempo. Because anytime I think of Myanmar, that's what I think of, man. It's like they're like tempo, and they just get on the go right away, and they don't let games slip out of their hands.
And for the Philippines, it's more of that discipline, right? Like a slower paced game, but way more discipline, way more objective centered. And we're going to welcome them as well here for Philippines. We got Fi Amores, we got Fi Perez as well, Philippines Vivero, Philippines Al Puerto, and Philippines Diagon. We're going to see, those surnames, I believe, right? Being used here for the Philippines. I think this is the normal thing to see for the Philippines. I think for even the men's, right? They always use their surnames for their IGNs.
Yeah, I like that they do that. It's a sense of like kind of nationalism and really representing the country. So, they all have their IGNs that they go by. This is, for the people that are familiar with the Philippines, especially the female scene here, it is Omega Empress. So if you guys have been watching their games and the different tournaments that they've competed in, this is pretty much the lineup that they use. And, they might switch things in and out here, but overall, the main point is this lineup from the Philippines is very strong. They're very dominant in the way that they play. I think same thing can be said where, you're kind of wondering exactly how this, if you haven't watched the Philippines female team, it's kind of like, what is their play style? How do they like to approach these games? And I would say at least for the women's teams, for a while, for a lot of them, they were kind of adapting that utility jungle type play style, but they also liked these team fights and to clash things out and everything. But I would say, man, we almost have to put it in a perspective of, we've seen a lot of teams shift the way they play, for the most part, to fit this new patch, these new items, these new picks. And I think even for the Philippines here, for both teams, for Myanmar and Philippines, that adjustment will be made. And I know a lot of people have been looking for the Philippines men's team, and I think even by the time we get there to the WEC, because they have a direct shot to the WEC, guys. So Philippines men's are going straight to the WEC in Riyadh. That's later this year. They get that because they're the defending champions, of course, and then you have a slot there for Saudi Arabia because they are the host country. So 2 of those are already locked in, and I think even for the Philippines men's team, there by the time we get there, man, the play style will probably be a little bit different than what a lot of people are used to.
Definitely. I think, again, right? I mean, for the Philippines as well, yeah, the defending champions get the slot. Just like last year, when Indonesia won 2022, they got an instant slot to the main stage in 2023. And so with Philippines able to beat Indonesia, I believe it was 3-1, right, in the grand finals.
Yep.
That puts them into the defending slot position. So we are going to be taking a look at both these teams again. I'm really curious to see whether, for the Philippines, we've been talking about how they've been able to utilize objectives. They've been playing around neutral objectives to get the lead, way more disciplined compared to some other female teams from other women's teams where they actually like to go for the brawls, like to take these risks in these skirmishes to get the lead, even actually to try to look for a comeback sometimes.
Yeah.
I wonder if we're going to see more utility junglers still from Team Philippines, because it's been different, at least with the Sky Piercer coming in. I think most of the teams today as well, if you're on Assassins, you just find way more success. You find so much more value.
You think
with the burst
so?
damage. Yeah, I mean, Ken on the Nolan, Albert on the Nolan, the Lings as well. Even Cambodia, they were able to win out just through getting these Assassins in the jungle, some damage dealers as well. I think if you want to go for utility, it still has to be fast clearing utility. I think even the Fredrin.
It's Baksha number 1.
Yeah, probably Baksha. Baksha number 1. Even like Fredrin isn't really finding a lot of success. It's been kind of 50-50. Been out cleared, out leveled, out jungled completely by the other assassins who clear much faster. And that's why the Fredrin, I don't know, a lot of teams still go for the Fredrin first pick. I get the neutral objective control, but some of these teams, they go for the Fredrin, but then they rely too much on the Fredrin to go for these turtles. They don't actually add more layers on the CC department to actually help the Fredrin go for the neutral objectives. So I'm very interested to see, again, if the Philippines want to just go back to that normal Filipino style, right? They want to go for the turtle dances, which is still possible, but towards a later stage, maybe that's why we get to see more assassins. Maybe a lot of teams don't want to go utility because of the changes to the Lord. It's not really that easy to go for Lord dances. I think we got to see it firsthand just yesterday, casting a 32-minute game, and the Lord hurt. These tanky junglers aren't tanks to the Lord. They are squishies to the Lord, especially a 30-minute Lord. It was quite disgusting seeing that damage. These utility junglers just get taken to a quarter of their HP after taking, 3-4 shots? And it's not even easy to burst the Lord anymore, right? Like, even in the Evolved Lord, we know that it scales. I don't know if it's some like a shadow buff also to the HP bar, some damage reduction that he gets, or if it's just the damage that makes it so hard for everybody else, to just burst him down and blitz him.
The way that I've been seeing it is we just haven't had too many games just yet give us that opportunity to see how much, I would say, the Lord dance has changed. Maybe in some of the other tournaments going on right now, there's been these longer games, but you and I were casting that 32-minute game that we saw kind of unfold, and it was kind of shocking because even before we got to that mark where it was 32 minutes in, the Lord was already hurting. So I think this is going to really change some of the dynamic, for a lot of these teams on the way they approach that. And I think that's why you're seeing the shift of just battle it out and try to win these fights, and utilizing the Terizla, I would say Terizla for the most part, maybe a Minotaur for the roams or the Iesfs for the roams, and letting them hold the Lord the best they can, and then letting the assassin picks that we've been seeing constantly try to swoop in to secure the Lord. That's so far from what I've seen is kind of the game plan for a lot of these teams. And if it is a utility tank that pops up, it usually is the Baksha with the most success rate, I feel like, because like you mentioned, the Fredrin just hasn't really done well. But even the Barretts, man, where has the Barretts been in the jungle? He's been non-existent, and so I don't want to I feel like this is too early to say this, Mirko, but what I'm seeing possibly happen too is Roger's value becomes even higher, and he's first pick because some teams like to flex him in the jungle and some like to do gold, and that's the flex right now. So we're jumping in the draft here for game number 1 in this best of 3, and you can already see some of the bans coming out. Very interesting too, because these are still some different bans than what we're used to seeing, at least from the men's games even earlier today.
Definitely, right? With the Lo Yi ban and the Minotaur. We're used to seeing the Lo Yi still contested here and there, but the Minotaur is a bit different, really. It has kind of fallen in popularity just recently with the patch. Maybe it does feel like for this meta, you do find more prio, more value in the pure initiation heroes. The heroes that can just get the initiation done. More on the proactive roamers over the reactive roamers. But it's also going to be the Art and the Grok ban with the Novaria too. So maybe that's why we see the Lo Yi banned out, right? The Novaria ban at the start basically kind of shows that from Myanmar, they wanted to go for something like a Lo Yi, maybe even a chip here.
Yeah.
But we haven't seen a work not too often here, actually not at all. We've never seen a chip let go and do well. So that's going to be the chip banned out. We don't get to see the retribution of chip maybe in the Asian regional qualifiers. And the Fredrin,
Not
as
yet.
we were talking about earlier, is, we falling out of the meta based on the win rate, but it seems pick rate wise, he's still probably one of the safest picks to go for as first pick on blue side. Thing is though, we were already mentioning about the Roger. How the Roger's so good on as a flex pick, very, very good in the jungle and also in the gold lane. Preferably, for me, and I think for you as well, it's the jungle, definitely for Roger. You're more active on the map.
Definitely.
And now, technically the Ling is up for grabs with the Angela.
Angeling.
They could go for the Angeling here and basically try to nail this Fredrin all the way to the ground, all the way from the start, just by out-clearing him, out-leveling him, and then later on, technically out-sustaining him as well. The Ling in itself maybe can struggle, right? The Fredrin can give him a tough time, but a Ling with the Angela, or even a Roger Angela, technically, if they want to go for utility, Baksha is another good choice to go for with the Angela, but they'll go for the safe route first. They know that Fredrin will be picked in the jungle, so there's no way that the Ling will be denied, that the Baksha or any of those picks that we mentioned earlier will be denied away from Myanmar. So they go for the gold lane first, and it's going to be the Harith. Again, setting up for a physical damage dealer.
I'm wondering if this would open up the possibility of an Esmeralda for Myanmar to pick up.
That's
we've seen a couple of different iterations of it. It's been in the jungle, it's been in the XP lane, but they are gonna, for now, grab this Roger here, like we were talking about, very high priority pick. Surprised still that Fredrin was that first priority pick for Myanmar, but now that they get pretty two strong picks, I would say, even given the situation where the Angela and the Harith were picked up first, now you have Yuzhong. Yuzhong, I heard you say this earlier, Mirko, like XP lane is it's like the new jungle in a way. It's like,
yeah, man.
You got Yuzhong and you got Terizla. So maybe Philippines picks up the Terizla here and they go for it. But instead, they are going to go the Edith. And I think, we're still waiting for some of these XP laners to pop up that we were used to seeing before. I know we saw the Benedetta pop up earlier in the series today, and it didn't work out too well. I'm still missing the Paquitos that we got to see a lot of before. Even the Mitsutars and the Khalids, right? Like, where are they? The diversity that was in the XP lane right now, we're really on the Yuzhong and Terizla track. But for now, that's going to be fine. These last bans coming out, though, I'm glad Myanmar's like, you know what? We see the Angela. We're not going to deal with the Angeling. That is not happening. They might even ban out one more jungle pick if they want to from this. But either way, I think even if Philippines just waits to pick up the Baksha and Angela actually work out really well.
Exactly.
And this is like the classic utility matchup that we're used to seeing, the Baksha versus the Fredrin. So we'll see if that's the answer. Last ban, though, for Philippines is going to be the Xavier, and Eterna kind of shared some of the thoughts with the Xavier earlier. Saw it in the last series, didn't work out too well. Took a little bit too long to kind of scale up and build up. So traditionally, if these games are kind of quick or they follow their like average game time trajectory, Xavier is just not that great. That's why I think the Farsas, Farsa, Valentina's still open. That could pop up. I kept seeing this yesterday. Who is this
CC.
ban? Okay, it is CC. So it's just the Yuzhong picture.
Yeah, I don't know why. Maybe it's different today, right? Who knows? It's kind of like a gotcha. When you see the Yuzhong, that Yuzhong portrait, the new Yuzhong portrait, it's a gotcha. You never know what it's gonna be. But yesterday, from what we've seen at least, when we saw that picture, it was a CC.
It was two, right?
Yeah,
there was two like locked in by both rosters, a Yuzhong and then that Yuzhong.
Yeah.
So it was a CC. Okay.
Okay. Now we'll see for the Philippines at least. What do they want to go for, right? For the Baksha, it does make sense with the Angela together with this kind of composition. Gonna try to force the issue, dictate the matchup, dictate the pace of the game as well. But they'll go for the safe pick first in the Terizla. Not bad at all, by the way. Despite, you know, this being the only matchup that we've been seeing for the longest time, unless one of these heroes, Yuzong or Terizla, is banned out. But the Valentina comes in as well. That's gonna be great, by the way, for Team Myanmar. They can steal away the Primal Wrath, the Hard Guard, a lot of big ultimates. But we've seen, for a lot of Valentinas at least, when you actually have a lot of big ultimates, it kind of overloads the Valentina. It makes it very difficult for the Valentina to think which one to go for. But, you know, I think this is pretty easy for her. It should be. The Primal Wrath is the most broken one for sure to take as a Valentina here. Maybe sometimes the Hard Guard if the Yuzong or the Roger ever gets snowballing at the start of the game. Good Ruby pick as well to try to deny that momentum, that full dive that the Philippines are setting up for. And honestly, after looking at this composition, it's way too reliant on magic damage. They have to go for an assassin. Certainly, yep, that's going to be the Nolan in the jungle for the Philippines. They needed that physical damage power, and they do get it with the Nolan. Looking at the drafts, man, the Philippines, they have a lot of crazy fighting power in the early stage of the game. But so does Myanmar. They have neutral objective control. They got a lot of CC. And even for the neutral objective control early, they're really, really good. They're all really good heroes in the early game. So I think this is kind of 50-50 based on the drafts, but we've seen that the execution trumps all of the advantages that you have in the draft. So Philippines might be able to just snowball, destroy in the early game, or maybe it'll be Myanmar.
You know, looking at both lineups, I can see that to be in a 50-50. I think big part of Philippines lineup is what we've seen so far just today is if the Nolan can get the snowball. Like, if that happens early on, then it might be an early game here for this game number 1.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Land of Dawn for game number 1. Philippines takes on Myanmar. It's going to be Al Puerto on the Nolan up against K on the Fredrin. The Nolan versus Fredrin matchup that should favor the Nolan when it comes to clearing speed, but when it comes to these team fights, if K is able to lock El Puerto down, especially here, I gotta take a look at the emblems as well for K. Maybe it's a temporal raid to try to catch a very, very flexible and slippery member like the Nolan, but it is still gonna be the concussive blast. I think a bit too greedy if she does go for the temporal raid, because we've been seeing, you know, for the Fredrin, the biggest weakness that he has in the game is usually that clear speed. Up against Nolan, Ling, whoever it is, even the Baxia, you get out-leveled so early in the game, invaded as well, but not the normal kind of invade. They don't go for the fights, they just go for your creeps and run away, get that level lead. Ku in the mid lane?
Okay, I think, they might still go for this. Oh, flicker forward. Vivero not able to find the connection she was looking for. El Puerto is level 4 to K's level 3. But yeah, early possible engage, just gonna be kind of snuffed out for now. Turtle's still quite a ways away as well, 30 seconds plus away from that turtle, so they'll just farm up and try to see if they can still find a kill early on, but if not, then they'll focus on that objective.
Slowly but surely, but also for Diagon, it's going to be the Impure Rage here for Perez as well, but for Diagon, it's really because of the War Axe. There's no real reason to go for the Brave Smite anymore. You already have so much sustain built in your kit, built in the War Axe with that merger with the Bloodlust, so now you just take care of your mana. It's been a problem for Terizla in the early game for the longest time. The fact that now you get to get your hands on Impure Rage. Ooh, in the bottom lane.
Porto once again, but there's just so much CC with Ku here. And I think that's also why they just picked up the Ruby. You know, it's probably one of the best answers to deal with, especially the early aggression from a Nolan. But with that all happening, Turtle's going to be up now, first one of the game. El Puerto going to poke down, has the Hard Guard hanging over her, and also Luna Lin will hold it in. They go in with the Onward, pop the Primal Wrath, but that's going to be the turtle already secured by El Puerto, plus the kill on K. They find another kill, and they might collapse down even further. Luna Lynx could be in trouble. She's going to be fine. Does back off. Had that Primal Wrath stolen from Vero, but she'll hold down the mid lane. But Philippines going to be happy with those 2 kills plus the objective.
That sustained advantage in the early game, helping Team Philippines out so much, and great penalty zone, by the way, from Diagon there. Getting K locked down so that the retribution comes in on point. This setup was amazing for Team Philippines, and I think for Amores, really. She was able to just get all the waves down for the healing, and the Hard Guard really played a part as to how they were able to just walk in with no hesitation whatsoever. Didn't even care if it's El Puerto on a squishy pick jumping in. On the Nolan, if you get the Hard Guard, you're basically a tank. And if we take a look at the items here, still very, very basic. But for Chikoshi, at least, on that Warcry, she's already gotten the Sky Piercer too. First item Sky Piercer on the Roger. Not something we're used to seeing all the time. Most of the times we still get to see the Windtalker. Even though, you know, this is a different kind of Roger. It's not in the jungle. It is going to be a Roger in the gold lane. Perhaps with the next build, she'll go for the Windtalker. She needs a bit of utility, honestly. Looking at how Team Philippines have so much CC, so much utility as well. Even on that Zaman Force, you get a lot of big slows right as you keep on dashing and basic attacking. So Chikoshi needs to respect this. She does. Gets the tough boots. And it's already 3 tough boots, by the way, at the start of the game for Team Myanmar. Already respecting how much magic damage prowess Team Philippines has.
Yeah, they kind of have to deal with that, but I'm also noticing Al Puerto, she is farming out of her mind. She's level 8 to K's level 6 right now. She also got the Blade of Heptacy's first item. So really looking for, you know, those pretty much the assassinations to go through and get that burst damage coming through. I'm also surprised that Amores didn't go with the focusing mark, because sometimes you see the Angelus pick that up and it helps with that burst window a little bit more, but instead goes with the Impure Rage. So interesting kind of how we've seen a difference or a variance in a lot of the emblems now that are playing a part. Like you mentioned already with Kikoshi, already has that Warcry emblem. Now they're going to find out here for the second turtle. Dragon form already going to be used up. Still holding on, hovering over the Heart Guard. They go in with the flicker though. Penalty zone from Diagon. They're going to have to follow it up, and El Puerto will get the turtle. Second one of the game, and now fighting it on as they look for more bodies. K already gone. Kikoshi has to get out of there. Has the speed, and there's the Heart Guard on the disengage. It looks like Philippines will get out with the kill, plus the objective. They still want to put the pressure here in the mid lane. El Puerto waiting very patiently. She goes in. There's multiple members in the mid lane. They're quite tanky themselves. Hilang trying to get out. Flicker on the defensive from Amores, and now fighting it once again. Ku holding down the front a little bit too long as Ku, she will fall in the exchange. Now Philippines furthering the lead they have.
Deja vu to turtle number 1. The same exact way the Philippines got turtle number 1, they did in turtle number 2. They executed the same game plan. It is Diagon who starts it up with the penalty zone, the follow-up instantly for Al Puerto, and the Heart Guard that gives Al Puerto all the space necessary, all the resources necessary to walk up and be an absolute menace. It's basically a fighter. Now, like, Al Puerto is a fighter that does assassin damage. That's how ridiculous the damage is coming in, and how much sustain you get in the composition coming in from the Philippines is. And you can see for Perez as well, that was a beautiful rotation from Team Philippines. The fact that they actually sent Perez into the bottom lane straight after going to control the mid lane before setting up for that turtle. Perez was able to get a free turret. Kosi was actually tried, they kind of tried to utilize Kosi in this fight, in the turtle fight, and yeah, it really didn't work out because of that sustain, because of that burst damage that the Philippines have. And if you take a look at Perez, this is also going to be an item. Power Spike, second item, by the way. Sky Piercer for Al Puerto. Heptacy's Sky Piercer. That's why we can see that crazy damage, and now even more so. Now you're going to have that behind every single engage. You're going to have to think that, okay, Al Puerto, once she gets, you know, the fracture in, that passive down as well with the skill 1 and even the dash, you might just get executed straight up the board. Chikoshi needs a little bit more of that mobility, and that's why the Windtalker gets built up here. And both of the teams are going to go for the setup for the third and final turtle of the game.
Yeah, they're going to hold it there together. Heart Guard already to be used on Vivero. They're going to fight under this, and there's a burst of damage coming out from Al Puerto, even with the Appraiser's Wrath, but that is going to be the turtle secured for Myanmar, and they actually get a couple kills on top of it, and 3 fall for Philippines. Myanmar striking back in a decisive third turtle fight. And they'll see if they can get more. Al Puerto tries the 1v1 versus Koshi, but look at that, the Warcry emblem coming out top 4-0 on Koshi.
Oh man, all the lead that they were able to get, all the leads in the early game. Now it's going to be kind of tough. Koshi is getting to that snowball point, 4 kills in the skirmish, and Team Philippines, the target allocation, they try to execute the same exact gameplay from turtle number 1 and turtle number 2, but it was a bit different, right? The penalty zone and the Primal Wrath was used to fight instead of used to go for the free neutral objective. And because they let Kay get so many of those stacks, she was able to get in the Praiser's Wrath while she was very, very low. Yeah. So enhancing that damage, getting her a better way to chain together with her Retribution for that turtle take, and also just taking everybody low. Cool.
Who's going to go in with the conceal? The Heart Guard's there to help them out. They're going to lose the turret. Already dropping the dominant force, but the penalty zone already expended as well. In Myanmar, they're happy with the turtle. They'll disengage from that. So it looks like Myanmar will continue on finding the objectives, crawling back into the game. They've nearly diminished the gold lead that the Philippines had for so long.
Slowly but surely coming back in this game, right? It's only down now to not even 1,000 gold lead. Philippines had like a 2,000 gold lead earlier before the turtle.
Yeah.
But now it's all gone. And for Philippines, they've got to be careful because the power spikes for Myanmar, it's about to hit. This is the mid-game. So both of them will have their power spikes. It'll become a little bit more 50-50 in these skirmishes. But looking at how much, CC and layering Myanmar have, it'll get pretty scary for everybody except for Perez, it seems. Because for Perez, at least, she does have that Purify. She'll be able to actually escape and utilize this amount force anyways, even with the layering of CC. But for the most part, Nolan, El Puerto, Amores, Diagon, and Vivero, you can deal a lot of damage. You can also, have a little bit of CC in your arsenal, in your kit, but it's still going to be really tough when Myanmar can layer that CC upon you while also dealing damage. Chikoshi definitely needs to be the target for Team Philippines. They need they need to find a way somehow to take Chikoshi down, or maybe pick off Lunalings before the fight even starts. Because for the most part, I think in these skirmishes, Chikoshi's dealing a lot of damage, but how is she getting a lot of space? It's gotta be Lunalings. Always playing together with Chikoshi, using a Terrify to cover her, and even for Ku, she can go for a lot of the initiations with I'm Offended, a lot of the pick-off initiations, but she can also just use Donor on Wolf King to peel for the back line for Lunalings and for Chikoshi. And you can already see that Kay is taking a whole lot of damage from that Lord. This is what we were talking about early on, man. The Lord now, the Lord dance is a bit tough to pull off as a solo utility jungler, but it seems they want to commit onto this.
Yeah, fourth of the health. They're going to be forced back by the Dragon Form. They're going to have to get in the zone, but they can't get there in time, as Kay will just take the Lord. I'm not sure why the hesitation from the Philippines. They knew what Kay was doing. She's even sitting there at half health, but they just watch as the Lord is taken. And again, a great timing from Hileng to use that Dragon Form to kind of force the Philippines to have a second thought about even initiating.
Interesting choice, right, by Team Philippines. You noticed it earlier. Yeah, they were just standing around, I guess, kind of afraid of that layering, but also hesitating for sure. The Lord was taken. It wasn't even like a slow Lord. It was a very, it wasn't a fast Lord, sorry. It was a very slow Lord take by Team Myanmar. I mean, Kay was half HP. She was a quarter by the time they got the Lord. So a lot of ways for Philippines to enter in that skirmish. And because Myanmar already got the Lord so low and there was no response at all from Team Philippines, they decided to just go for it. Very decisive plays being made by Myanmar, and now they're on the siege.
Yeah, this is going to be tough. I guess for the Philippines, they're going to have to be a little more decisive on this one. Shields are going to pop. They will take the Lord out really quickly, though. So they actually at least should hold on to the base turrets for now, but the shields are going to be gone as the top one also pops. Still holding on to the bottom one, but Myanmar, I think, again, if you've been looking at the past 5 minutes or so, they're playing very disciplined, very objectively, and just happy to get, if it's 1 or 2 objectives here, whether that's a minor thing or a major objective, they're happy with that, and they'll back off and continue to build up, because now they're in a good position with a lead, a couple thousand gold ahead, and happy to just walk in with that Lord, that first one, get all the shields they needed, and they can get prepped and ready for the next objective. It is still quite a ways away, 1.5 minutes or so, so unless Philippines makes a play, which it looks like they could possibly go in for that setup potential, then they could just find themselves in a Lord battle once again. I mean, it wasn't much of a dance previously, but there's the flicker from Vivero, but she's not going to be able to find the connection on the onward. And even with that, so they might still have to calculate this. Myanmar knows a flicker is down for Vivero.
And that's twice that it has happened, right? It was I think level 1 or level 2 that she tried to have as well. Onward.
Oh, they're going to fight. Penalty zone already used. Ku's there too. Penalty zone in response to battle it out, but Chikoshi gets the kill. Heart Guard going to be used. They go back to the safety of the turret as Ku is quite low. K as well. Luna has to back off. She's the one already using that penalty zone as well. Now Philippines will try to run it down mid, putting the pressure still. They're 20 seconds, 25 seconds away from the Lord. So Myanmar has to go back to the base. They have to reset. You can see Philippines trying to push up the top here, trying to put some pressure in these side lanes possibly. And the same thing is happening with K. So as both teams get ready and are situated, we're 10 seconds away from the next objective. Some big item pickups will play a part in this next fight. But like I said, Philippines has to be a little more decisive. No, way
Agreed.
more decisive with this Lord fight that's now being started up by K.
Oh, Amores also picking up the glowing wand. Would love to see the items here to see exactly what Amores has in her inventory, because has she finished up the Flask of the Oasis? Does she even want to go for the Flask of the Oasis? Yeah, all right, so
she's
Flask
got
of the
it.
Oasis and the Fleeting Time done. So she's already on her third item, doing a pretty good job on the Angela here. It is an Angela mid, so you do get a little bit more resources, but now they are going to be more decisive here.
Oh, Conceal. Already going to be used? They get the Dragon form out, so both teams, key ultimates being down, they're going to come down to the Retribution. Penalty zone going to be used on top of it. Heart Guard finds the right target. Who's the one to fall in? Puerto will be able to get the Lord. Can they win the fight? Multiple flickers expended, but K cannot get away from the wrath of the Philippines. And now 2 down for Myanmar. Philippines made up for that one. They'll go down the mid lane, get the tier 1 and the tier 2. It's only Halang left to her devices. She doesn't have a dragon form. She's gonna have to rely on Kokoshi there. He gets knocked up. She's on the back foot, but they'll try to defend this tier 2. Philippines has the Lord marching down the bot here as they get down and they get ready to knock on the base of Myanmar.
Whoa.
Still, Kokoshi taking a couple shots. You see Luna Lynx has the penalty zone. She's going to hold on to it for now, but they have to deal with this defense. Meanwhile, trying to hold on to these base turrets as Lord makes it way in the bottom.
The Filipino team fighting, man, is still just so clean. The fact that they were able to take that once again, just by being more decisive. They got the penalty zone down. Vivero as well, amazing onward. And she's already trying to play with this Lord too that will be able to charge to the base turret in the bottom lane. Penalty zone.
Diagon using that penalty zone. Once again, the Heart Guard is on top of her, and now they're going to force them out a little bit further. Zaman Force already dropped as well, and that's K falling. Looking like Luna as well. The double comes through, and they're still going to work on the base as the Lord is still up. They have to deal with it, but they can. It's a triple, and Philippines will take game number 1 against Myanmar.
Wow. An early crazy start for Team Philippines, an amazing snowball from the first 2 turtles, but then they lose out completely on the third turtle, kind of losing their vision, losing their mission in that turtle pit to the Appraiser's Wrath, and an amazing retreat by K to come back again for Myanmar. And then they were able to capitalize on that by taking the Lord, but Team Philippines stayed disciplined. All they had to do was stay composed, look for the defense, and then look for the team fight again. That will be on their side as long as they stay decisive, like you said, Naisio. And I think they did make that adjustment mid-game straight away. The fact that they, I think, figured out that in the third turtle, they were just a little bit indecisive there. It did cost them the turtle, costed them the fight as well. They now understood that, okay, for the layering at least, it needs to be the penalty zone first, into the onward, into the Earth Shatter, and then for Al Puerto, he needs to come in towards the end of the fight, together with the Zaman Force from Perez. And that's what we saw from the first 2 turtles. That was how Team Philippines were able to play it. It was always the onward, or the Primal Wrath actually. All the abilities used up by the roamers first to engage, to deplete some of these resources from Team Myanmar before Al Puerto eventually comes into the team fight. But here, it was a bit different. We did see the penalty zone, but Al Puerto joined in the fight and targeted the wrong members. Look at that massive Appraiser's Wrath from K, getting 3 members on an Appraiser's Wrath where K was basically almost dead. It chained together so well, got her so much HP back and too much damage really for Al Puerto to try to predict the retreat. But after that, it was a Lord take for Myanmar. There was a few moments of hesitation for Team Philippines there for the first Lord, but after that and the second Lord, they stayed decisive. They adjusted to Team Myanmar's layering, and they were able to just play it better in the team fights, getting the neutral objective and then going straight for the base. They didn't even bother, by the way, going for the other waves here. They went straight for the bottom lane, dove in with their hard dive composition, and utilized the strength in their composition, which is the variety, a massive variety in terms of damage output, with the Harith doing a whole lot of damage, a Primal Wrath as well, doing magic. We also had that physical damage burst coming in from the Nolan. So in the end, Perez as well, definitely the most consistent member on the team all the way from the start of the game, did not die a single time. On a Harith, up against this composition, you're kind of like placed in a tough spot. You want to dash in, you have to be aggressive to deal damage, but you kind of don't want to be aggressive fully aggressive, at least, up against Myanmar's composition. They have a lot of CC that can layer, and even with the Purify, you are going to usually find yourself in a tough spot if your Zaman Force a bit too far ahead. But hey, she was able to make it work. Shout out to Perez with the itemization as well. I was very, very impressed that she actually picked up the Starlium Scythe so early in the game. I think it was like 5th or 6th minute already. So she was already on the way to what usually is the Holy Crystal. But even then, she decided to go for more utility. I think she built Blood Wings before the Divine Glaive, knowing that for Myanmar, they have a lot of damage to play with. They have a lot of that layering CC to play with. So she went for a little bit more of the defensive build, and it paid off for her. Really, really good stuff. No Holy Crystal as well. Straight into the Divine Glaive, straight into penetration, because she knows, I think, at the start, the burst damage and the consistent damage will be coming from the Nolan and from the Edith. So all she needs to do is clean up.
Yeah, it's like, aside from that one team fight that went completely not their way for Philippines, I feel like they had a really good control over the majority of the game, and their lineup that they had ended up working out really well for them. It was really well executed and thought out. Part of it too made me think, like, you know, with the way that they drafted and the game plan that they had, and anytime a Nolan is locked in, if I remember right, it was last pick, right? Yeah, the Nolan was last pick. You know that shifts the dynamic of the game, because again, we're thinking Angela was picked up in the first phase, so you have that, and initially you're thinking, all right, well, maybe they go the Angeling, maybe they go some type of assassin for that first phase pick for the Philippines to have, you know, on that red side, but then they kind of waited out. And it's also a decision because you're playing into a Fredrin, and you know, I'll still say the Fredrin seems to be working okay. It's not like for Kay, it's not the way that she played or anything. I think she had some good setups. It was good that she, you know, took initiative on the Lords or the objectives. But when it came to the actual team fights is where the lineup that you saw here from Myanmar struggle a bit. Aside from that one time where they just had a really good team fight against the Philippines. And also, it's like the Philippines' worst enemy is if they hesitate or if they're like not sure of themselves. And even when they had to they had a lead, they lost the lead, they regained the lead, you know, that was kind of a thing they kind of had to adjust to, because they were in a territory where, for example, Sakoshi, she could have snowballed even further on the Roger. We have seen this happen time and time again. And I think at one point she was like 4-0, and she had that Warcry emblem, and we saw how much damage potential she could do. But it was just unfortunate because every time the clashes would happen, the team fights would happen, Philippines, like you mentioned in the middle of the game, their fighting prowess, the way they go about team fights, it's very apparent that like they've mastered it to, you know, the best degree that they can right now. Even for this women's team, they're phenomenal in team fighting, and it shows here. Even the way they kind of dissect the fights, if you really look at them, you know, from the way they use these ultimates, from the way they use the conceal, even from the way that they bait some of the ultimates out, they wait for that to kind of go down. Like, for example, the Black Dragon form, once it was down, then their window to initiate comes through. It was only, like I said, there were some struggles for Philippines on the hesitation, and then really, if Vivera wasn't able to get the knockup that she's looking for with the onward, and sometimes we saw her flicker, like I think it was like 2 or 3 times, and she wasn't able to land it, then they had to like call it off, and then you're left with penalty zone, right? And so I would say that overall, Philippines, they did a great job at utilizing the lineup they had. They made some minor mistakes here and there, but still a very good win for them, a very solid win. And I think even the same for Myanmar, they should be happy with that first game, because a lot went well for them in a game where they were behind originally. You know, so they just needed to kind of maintain that. They even went the discipline route, and you know, they got all the shields off on the base turrets, but after that, you know, that's about as far as they could go.
It almost seems like all the way from the drafts, right, for Team Philippines, it was catered towards their one-trick style. In this game, at least, it looked like one trick, right? It looked like they just wanted to go for the burst team fight. If they go for the initiation and it works out for them, they have enough burst to actually just plow through any sort of front line, plow through anything. And that's what we saw. Even when the game was even, by the way, for that enhanced Lord, they were able to do that. They were just, I don't know how they did it. That layering was, again, amazing, right? And like you said, they've mastered it so well. And I just got to give props to the coaching staff as well. If that was, you know, the draft coming in from the coaches, because it seems like he or she knows exactly what the team wants to go for in every single situation. And in that situation, they just wanted to team fight. Because in terms of like the ways you could take the game, I would say for Team Myanmar, they had different ways to take the game. They had a multi-dimensional draft where they could kite, they could try to go for split pushes, they could disengage, they can also go for pickoffs, right? Meanwhile, for Team Philippines, it's more of like, all right, we're gonna try to fight, we're gonna force them to stay in the fight so that the Zaman force, so that all these, burst damage abilities can hit, can land. That's why the Edith was taken. That's why the Terizla is so important to this composition as well. When you have a penalty zone, when you have that Earth Shatter, and on top of that, the immobility field that you get with the Primal Wrath, right? So, in a way, I would say for Team Myanmar at least, around the turtles or just in the game itself, it is a bit tougher to pull off that kind of composition because they have to be very, very smart with it. They have to try to bait out some of these big resources from Team Philippines before then re-engaging. So it's a lot of kiting back and forth before they can ultimately take over the team fight. It's either they stay more decisive, punish the hesitation nature that we saw coming in from Team Philippines, at least in the mid game, or they get completely destroyed in an all-out fight. If they don't kite, that's what we can expect from this matchup. But for a team that wants to play with sustain, that wants to play with consistent damage up against a burst composition, it's just very, very tough to pull off. And that's what we saw from Team Philippines. They were able to read their own gameplay and execute it much better than Team Myanmar. But yeah, we did see glimpses of brilliance here and there for Team Myanmar, how they were able to come back, how they were able to stay decisive despite being still behind them. They only got a win in the third turtle, right? It was 1 turtle to 2. It was a lot of objectives still on the hands of Team Philippines. The 2,000 gold lead too on the hands of Team Philippines. And Myanmar, they decided to just stay decisive, utilizing that utility jungler to go for the Lord and eventually to take it. Even though the Lord dance is a bit tough to see, we also saw that first-hand experience, I think, for Kay as well. Maybe in this new patch, on the Fredrin, she's like, yo, I'm taking a whole lot of damage here. I don't know if I'm up against the Nolan or the Lord because it seems like the Lord is dealing a bit more consistent damage than the Nolan even can on me. And yeah, that's just the new Lord, man. It's really tough to go for the Lord dance.
Dude, that was even the first Lord.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of watching. I was paying attention to that because, finally we get to see this Fredrin doing that, right, for the first Lord. So, and then I was like, wait, this is a little more damage than I'm used to. And I think Kay even was kind of like, we're gonna need something to happen here because it was a good thing, at least for that first Lord, that the Philippines, that's where they hesitated. And I think they just weren't sure if they should go in. And then by that time, they were just zoned out with the Dragon form. So I think, as we need to see more of this because Fredrins, typically you're thinking like Fredrins, the Barretts, maybe the Bakshas. And now I just feel like more teams so far, if I think even just about today, what they've been doing is just having the roams or the XP laners like hold the Lord. And usually that's why we see a lot of these teams actually roll with sustain heroes. We've seen a lot of Raphaels pop up, Angelas. We've seen a couple Florins pop up now. And I think that's part of it. That might be something that teams kind of adjust to, where if they do want to go and have these extended kind of dances once again, they're going to have to juggle it. I mean, they can't just keep the jungler there, especially now that we're in I would say almost a 50-50 where like we either have assassin junglers or we have tankier junglers kind of fit into these compositions. So I think having a sustain hero or roamer can help, or just holding it in with your XP lanes. I know I've seen Minotaurs do it where they're knocking on the Lord and they hold it there, or it's the Terizlas, but overall, I mean, even looking at this game, Mirko, like it is very fighting centric, and I think that's just maybe that's what everybody wanted. And they finally, there was finally a patch that was just like, yep, we're gonna switch this meta up than what you guys have been used to seeing for over a year now, a year and a half or
too
more.
long.
I don't know. It's been a minute and a half. It's been a long time. So let's go into the draft here for game number 2.
Depending on how you see it, right? If you're a human being, it's been a while. But for Naisu, if you guys are a building as well, then it's been a minute. It's been a minute and a half, he says. So that's around a year in human years, right? I mean, in human time. So let's get into the draft and see for Team Philippines. It's still going to be Luo Yi, Ban, and the Minotaur. Still sticking to, again, their composition. It just feels like they want to cater towards that kind of composition. They want to go for an instant dive, and whatever heroes that can actually react or be more creative than that dive will be banned out. The Minotaur will be a very, very good tool to utilize up against that kind of composition, right? It's a composition that wants to dive in. Minotaur loves that. You all clump up together, and the Minotaur gets the Mumin's Fury, gets the healing as well to every member that's low with the Flask of the Oasis. And now, it seems they will actually ban out the Fredrin, respecting how at least oppressive Kay was on that Fredrin. Even though she was behind, she was able to get the Appraiser's Wrath on 3 members. So the comeback potential on that hero, the comeback mechanics on that hero is still very, very present. We can see, especially when you combo it together, right? If it's just an Appraiser's Wrath, it's like, all right, very easy ability to dodge. But then you have a little bit of CC, or if you even combo it together with your own taunt, it's a sure hit. It's a certain hit, 100%. And that's why at least for Myanmar, actually going to be taking away the Grok again. So the Angela gets left open, and Team Philippines definitely do not hesitate at all to go for that Angela pick. It's been amazing for them all the way at the start of the game as well. For Turtle number 1, Turtle number 2, I think that sustain really gave the Assassin a way to become a tank and an assassin at the same time. We were talking about it. It was basically like a fighter Nolan, but with still the normal Nolan damage, which just makes it kind of unfair, right? Lethal Ignition, Fracture, that passive, and then a hard guard. But the Harith will be taken away with the Roger, so the Roger should be going to the jungle. Good deny pick from Myanmar after, experiencing the Harith in game number 1.
I'm wondering because, yeah, like that shows the cards already. Because the Harith and the Roger are there. I'm wondering if it would have been a little bit too risky if they just held off on one of the picks. Maybe so, because then Philippines would have taken it up. Because, I would have seen like maybe you pick up the Roger and then you get something else, maybe your Rome, and you leave that kind of mystery there. But I guess you don't want to also just give up the Angela again with a Harith, possibly for the Philippines. So Myanmar might have just been forced into that, and that's their game plan here.
Oh,
here we go. So Philippines is this is what I'm wondering. Is this the CC that you mentioned before with this portrait, or is this the Yuzhong, as that's going to be showing up here? And then of course you have the Edith for Philippines. First phase though is looking really interesting. I mean, whether this is a Yuzhong or the CC, and there's just that kind of that error here. We haven't seen CC in a while, but until that's confirmed, I don't want to talk about it too much, because this also could just be a Yuzhong pickup. And either way, that's what we're used to seeing in the XP lane, man, is the Yuzhong Terizla constantly coming up here. So for this lineup, I really want to know this Edith, for example, because the Angela is here. I'm assuming, right, mid lane Angela, Rome, Edith. Again, I could see this Edith being flexed maybe into the XP lane, but this time not, because we have a Yuzhong here, and even if it's a CC, that's probably going to be the telling sign. So with this, I already like what Philippines is doing. I want to know what their jungler is going to be, and I like that they're saving it for last once again, because this might also make Myanmar ban out the Nolan if they just don't want to deal with that kind of burst damage again. I think even if they don't ban it out though, the fact that they got the Faramis here, who is relatively banned out quite often, it's good that they locked it in. They get that Nether Realm to work around. They get a lot of poke damage too, and so far from what we've seen, the Stampedes have been phenomenal. When you're able to use it, get the Shadow Stampede off, drag them back to your team, especially with the 2 heroes they already have, the Harith and the Roger. And it'll be even better if they can actually lock in a Terizla. Not sure if they're going to go that route, but now it is. It's banned out, so good call from the Philippines. Ban out the Terizla. And so for Myanmar, they already took out the Ling, so I'm thinking, like, do they take out the jungle up? Do they at least take out the Nolan, or are they just okay dealing with it because they have a Faramis, and that was the plan here?
Yeah, I think the Faramis pick is a really good pick, by the way, for Team Myanmar, right? Because the main problem that they had in game number 1 was that they weren't able to delay enough for those cooldowns to actually be active, for those cooldowns, for that window to open, where they've already used all their initial bursts, all their initial big abilities for it to be on cooldown, for them to take control with the consistent damage they got. So the Netherrealm is a good way to actually do that. It's a good way to get your team a way to actually, delay that super burst damage, crazy team fighting. But I guess they want to take away the Nolan still. It's a bit too oppressive, especially considering maybe I don't know. Never mind. Kay's going to be on the Roger. I was about to say that, for Myanmar, it seems they still want to go for the utility junglers, but they've already picked the Roger. And now I believe it's a CC pick for Philippines, right? Because of the Nolan ban and the Ling ban. See, CC is great at going for these prolonged team fights, so that's why they need a little bit more burst in their composition, I think. So good read by Team Myanmar here by banning out the Nolan and the Ling. We'll see though. Maybe it is just a Yuzong, right? Who knows?
Yeah.
But if we see the Yuzong banned here by the Philippines, I think that should confirm it. Should confirm that it's a CC. They are going to be banning out the X-Borg though. That's another good ban as well, considering how tanky, how beefy all these members are going to be with the help of the hard guard. And for the Edith, even without the help of the hard guard, you're just really tanky in general. You have a built-in shield as well. Myanmar, now Rome and XP still up for grabs. And then the Yuzong actually kind of fits here. You have a lot of dive in their composition. You could basically utilize what you already utilized in game number 1, but just now with a better composition that actually facilitates that dive, enables that dive with the Zaman Force, and most importantly, the Nether Realm, bro. That Nether Realm will be massive in these skirmishes.
Nether Realm is, I don't know, I feel like not every game we see the Faramis banned out, but when it does pop up, like earlier when we saw watching the Myanmar team play, it was in Justin's hands. It was devastating, man. It was actually the highest damage. This is interesting. A Uranus being picked up here by Myanmar for that XP lane. So we'll see if how this ends up working out. Wow. Okay. Philippines picks up a carry plus a Julian. So again, with that last pick for the jungle, the Nolan, the Ling were already banned out. So this time around, they'll pick up the Julian here. This gives them a lot of, I don't know, man. I feel like when we've watched the Julians in ISF, it's been 50-50. They don't do, you know, they don't scale as hard, I feel like, or get as snowbally as the Lings that we've seen and the Nolans that we've seen, but they're definitely still a threat, especially with that kind of, you know, even like you've mentioned before, the penetration that they get through the enhanced scythe and everything else, and just the setup potential. Like, this is a lot of CC here. And I don't even know if this is a CC, but other than that, if this is Yuzong or a CC, you have the Edith, you have the Julian to help out, but that's a great answer from Myanmar, as their last pick is going to be a Lolita. And, you know, so they have a Lolita, they have a very frontline heavy Uranus there to tank things up, which makes me wonder how this build is going to be, because I haven't seen a Uranus since the patch. So maybe, you know, you get to utilize some of the new items or however this build path is, but they're so tanky. And not only that, but they cover really good grounds for physical and magic damage from Myanmar.
And also for the Uranus, I think we've heard a lot, by the way, about the Uranus doing really good against the CC, right? Consistent damage coming through to you, no burst technically for the CC in that skirmish, so Uranus is going to have a good time. Maybe later on when he meets the Julian, when he gets comboed in by, you know, a lot of the lockdown that Team Philippines already have, plus that carry, then he'll struggle a bit. But at least in lane, it is going to be very, very safe. And it is indeed the CC, not the Yuzong, for Team Philippines. Glad we got that right. Ladies and gentlemen, will Team Philippines get the clean sweep up against Myanmar? Or will Myanmar, with Hlang on the Uranus and a big Lolita pick to bounce off a lot of the damage, to reflect the crazy damage coming in from Team Philippines in these skirmishes, will they be able to equalize? Welcome to game number 2. Into the land of dawn we go. But we're going to take our time here, you know? We're going to take our time. We're going to dissect the draft a bit longer, Naisu.
Yep. All right. So now I guess we can just assume that if we see the new Yuzong,
the new
I feel
portrait,
like he's
yeah.
like, yeah, I feel like he's the Chad Yuzong. Like, he looks better, dude. Like, you know, if we see that,
he looks
then
more
we
menacing.
kinda,
I don't know about better. I actually don't like the colors, man. I like the old colors.
I think he
better.
looks a little cartoony.
He looks kind of like, yeah, he's like an the token cartoon evil dude, you know?
Yeah. Okay, I can see that, but for me, either way, the Yuzong, if it was picked up, I think it could have fit in this lineup as well, but because it's going to be a CC here instead, again, something that we haven't seen too much of, honestly. Like, we've only probably seen a handful of CCs come to play, you know, whether that was men's or women's, and even in the African qualifiers, like, we didn't even see that, you know, we didn't even see the CC pop up that much. So like I said, it's mostly just these two heroes that we're used to seeing, it's Yuzong and the Trizla. This time that the CC is here, I think it's really part of it too. Like, how are they going to utilize the current call for this team composition? And, you know, hopefully everything was situated for these lineups and everything before we start diving deep into it. But the other thing that I was looking to see was what kind of emblems they went with, because there's been some good variation. I just feel like too, we haven't seen enough testing of the Temporal Rain emblem. And maybe some of you guys watching have tried, you know, you've tried more of the Temporal Rain and how it works in some of these heroes and everything. But so far, both lineups are pretty solid, I would say. Like the CC is the big question mark for me on how this is going to be fitting into the lineup and how they, like, as good as they fought in the team fights of the previous matchup, I think CC just makes it even better to deal with.
It depends. It depends how you look at it, right? If we're talking about how they can take the fight, it'll be a different way to go for the fight. We were talking about how they were really good at going for the pure dive, but on the CC, you can't really expect the damage to instantly, you know, come out. It's not that burst type of hero. You need the fights actually go a bit longer. And the fact that she actually went for the Brave Smite too. So it's gonna be the War Axe with that, you know, Bloodlust Axe sustain now, plus the Brave Smite, and then the Hard Guard. So they're really banking on that sustain being able to actually force out these skirmishes. Again, though, we have to remember that for Team Myanmar, even if they want to go for these long fights, they also have a lot in their arsenal to prolong the fights. They also have a way to win out in the long fights. They have another realm. They also have you know, a great Roger pick and the Lolita, mainly to reflect any of the damage initially that Team Philippines may be able to offer, may be able to utilize to try to burst down some of these big members, big chunky boys, as we call them. You know, the Roger. Would you consider Roger a chunky boy? Because I think he's like a mid chunk. You know, he's not a big chunk. He's kind of like he's pretty chunky as a marksman.
He's not a high rise.
He's not.
He's not a high rise, man. He's like a mid rise building.
For sure, he's a mid rise building. You know, he's pretty massive though. I mean, his HP bar and even that damage reduction when he is in a Lycan form, it does seem like El Puerto will be able to outclear K though, at least for the first camp, and that's gonna be the war cry for El Puerto and QC for K, not the war cry that we're used to seeing with on the Roger. So 3 Brave Smites, by the way, even Perez, something we haven't seen in a long time for the carry. That's a Brave Smite. We usually still see the QC now after the Brave Smite nerfs. The carry Brave Smite, not as popular. But what do you think about this, man?
I'm not sure, but hold on, mid lane, look at the burst damage. Oh, what is that damage, El Puerto? That's the Warcry emblem. And that 8% damage is why people like to pick it. Again, a toss-up. They already get the flicker out from Luna Lane. Holy moly! You know, you were asking me my thoughts on the emblems overall for Brave Smite, but you know, I'm seeing more of what this Warcry does in the early game. But yeah, I don't know. Brave Smite, I guess, you know, when you're talking about carry, usually the Quantum Charge is locked in there, but I think part of that is just to deal with, you know, the fact that you want to sustain yourself the best you can. You're already working against the fact that you have like probably the lowest attack range in the game, maybe for marksmen, you know, you kind of have to deal with. And it could also just be because of the matchup against a Herod. You know, you want to at least sustain yourself the best way you can, and even if that's an extra percentage of, you know, healing back with a Brave Smite, then that might just be the answer for now. Also, what kind of build does Perez go with on this carry? That's something we'll have to see.
What's interesting now is I want to see the interaction between the Guardian's Bulwark and also the Scythe from El Puerto, because if Ku can actually, you know, reflect the damage or reflect the enhanced Scythe back to the team, it's going to be very, very tough. Diagon, look at it go in.
Diagon going to go in, has the Hard Guard. Now the fight once again, the Earth Shatter. There's the onward, over the head they go. Fighting for the turtle still. It's going to be El Puerto that secures it. They also find K. They might be still looking possibly for more. Luna Lin pulling them through the wall, and Ku left to her own devices. She'll go ahead and back off. I think they want to hold this together the best they can. They're still planning themselves another onward in, over the head they go. It is a Uranus, quite tanky enough to withstand it, but they were trying to buy enough time for KK. Will she get it? No, she can't get the orange buff as it's taken now. It goes in the hands of Diagon. So with that, Philippines getting a lead here at early point of the game. There we go. We got the clock. It's 3 minutes in.
And that's great, man, for Team Philippines. The fact that they were able to get 2 kills at the start, you know, the first kill obviously being in the bot side mid push, and then the second one in that team fight, it was on to K. Still, Team Philippines, even without the Terizla, even without real ways to fully initiate and lock them down, they were able to just go in. I think it was because of Diagon there, who popped in the curtain call, locked K down, and got the Hard Guard. We were already talking about that. Onward.
I don't know, man. Vivero, she fixed like whatever she had to do here. She's on point this game. I don't know how many times I've seen her actually land key onwards on the right targets, of course. So yeah, you know, as you were saying, and with that, it looks like Myanmar, they're not too far behind. That's something we have to keep in mind. You know, it is only a couple kills on the board. Their lineup is going to take them a little bit longer also to scale up, I feel like, with everything happening here. Now, K generally, you know, Jungle Roger fits in pretty well. You can scale up pretty quickly. But look at this. Come on, pressure now on the bottom side. Zaman Forest already used. Koshi's going to be fine, though. At least holds down the lane. So going back to it, I think Myanmar's lineup, they need a little bit more time to kind of scale up here, especially with the Harith and the Roger in their hands. And now Turtle coming up. They're going to want to fight this. It looks like everybody will be joining this fight except Perez. She makes her way top side. So this could just be a 4 versus 5. Looks exactly like it's going to be that way. And there you go. Once again, Vero goes in with the onward, goes in with the air shatter too. And now Heart Guard going to be used. Turtle's going to go for the reset, so they just want to battle it out. Even if it's 4 versus 5, Vengeance going to be popped too. Zaman Force, Koshi going back and forth. They're gunning, they're shooting. Even with the knock-up, they'll lose Diagon, but now the push on the top side. They could be just trading the objectives here. Myanmar will go ahead, take this turtle possibly, unless El Puerto can pull something out of her hat here to make it work. She does have the retribution. They're going to zone her out the best they can, and look at that full push up top simultaneously. And with that, K will be able to secure the turtle. So enough pressure there, but still, Philippines holding on to the minor lead they have. And even with that, again, Vivero going in with the onward Earth Shatter combination, won't be able to find the kill on the bottom side.
I think honestly for Team Philippines, that was a big win. The fact that they had 5 members in the bottom lane, Myanmar, they really needed a big win there to make it worth it. They couldn't just go for the turtle trade with the turret. Even with Diagon down, it really doesn't really hurt Philippines that much, and they'll still be able to clear it as it seems.
Oh, Hero Blast going to be used already, and now El Porto joining the fight. It's going to be a full-on fight with the Heart Guard too, as Koshi goes down. Not sure if Philippines can even grab anything further, but Luna Lin is here now. She's going to be forced out. Look at the damage coming out from that yo-yo. And now gets dragged into the turret. This could be a mistake. Vengeance going to be popped, though. Netherrealm luckily there to help sustain the fight. The knockdown once again. Vivero is on point on this Edith in this game number 2 as Philippines finds more across the map.
Man, no wonder we saw the CC pick early on in the first phase. Something we don't see a lot from, you know, Philippines or any other team. The CC pick, but Diagon,
Koshi.
Cast a curse.
Punish. Yep, again, you know, cast a curse, as you were saying, Mirko.
Bro, I really wanted to, you know, compliment Diagon on the C. I really wanted to. I did not mean to do that. You know, again, Diagon, just as I say it, she dives in deep, but still, the pick is amazing. The fact that she's been able to zone so many members in the first turtle, in the second turtle as well, baiting out so many of those resources to delay the turtle take, and then earlier, the chase down in the bottom lane as well. Some really good stuff from Diagon with the help of Amores, obviously, you know, with the Heart Guard. That wouldn't have been possible without the Heart Guard, but still, really good stuff. Now you definitely know and understand why the CC is so prio for them. But back again to that turtle/turret trade, it's still way better for Team Philippines now because they're going to have the better setup this time around to go for the neutral objective for turtle number 3. They're going to be able to delay it. Even if Myanmar try to force it, it should be a trade down below. And so far, they're actually going to go for the commitment here. Perez is still down below.
Yeah, they're going to go for it. Heart Guard already expended. Turtle for the taking here. And it's going to be K that's able to secure it. Now still fording for the fight. Philippines, though, going to push them back a little bit even further. K already trying to heal back up. Netherrealm extending the fight. Perez now joining the fight for it. No one going down just yet, but they're quite low. The chase is on. Luna Lin trying to run for the hills, and she will get away. And no one goes down in the entire exchange. Not just yet, but Myanmar trying to hold on to this mid lane tier 1 turret. Not sure if they're still going to push the situation. It looks like they're going to do that. Zaman Force already dropped down, doing anything to hold on, and they're in trouble. El Puerto, though, able to get away in the nick of time with a sliver of health.
All right, there you go. That was a good win for Myanmar for the turtle take, right? But again, the main problem for Myanmar is if you take a look at the goal, it's still in the hands of the Team Philippines. They're setting up so well. So even when Myanmar get the neutral objective, even when they win on these skirmishes, they're actually not going to be the ones winning out in gold. They're consistently losing gold in the waves that they're sacrificing to go for the neutral objectives. Because if we take a look at that turtle fight again, that third turtle, yes, Myanmar were able to commit onto it. They were able to win out technically in the skirmish, having more resources up by the end of it. But if you paid attention to what Perez was doing, she built up a slow push down below Moraes. Moraes is going to be engaged on.
Yeah, I was going to say, she was pulled by Luna. Somehow, Moraes survives the exchange. Did use the flicker defensively, so that's part of it. Now in the mid lane, though, it looks like Myanmar wants to be the first one to get this tier 1 down. Neither team able to get that, though, just yet, and we're 30 seconds away, less than 30 seconds away from that Lord coming up here. So we'll find themselves in a very similar situation, but I would say that Myanmar's power spike's pretty good here. Another initiation once again. Ku taking a ton of damage. They'll back off again. A lot of ultimates expended from Philippines so far, and with that, they'll go ahead and try to reset. They need everything they can for both teams to battle out for this first Lord.
Okay, so back to the point, right? The fact that they are constantly losing waves. The waves are being shoved in towards these tier 2s. And sure, the main reason for that is obviously, wait, another fight, another skirmish.
Oh, another drag coming through. Vivero pops the Primal Wrath. Hard Guard's going to be there on Diagon. She's going to chase her under the turret, but to the safety of the turret they go. No commitment just yet. Halang also making her way down in the mid lane. Once again, they jump in a little bit further. Diagon could be in trouble. Zaman Force going to be used. Numinum Blast will not be able to find any of the targets. Conceal on the disengage as well. And Kay trying to make her way down to this fight, but it's all just going to be at a stalemate for now between both teams. So 10.5 minutes in, it's only 4-2, but Philippines holding on to the lead that they had, nearly 3,000 up.
Slowly but surely, again, Philippines just using their style, man, that disciplined style, going back and forth, trying to threaten some of these pickoffs, but if they don't get it, it's completely fine. They can still use that global presence with the Angela. Again, pay attention to how they utilize this Angela to take control of the far lane. Because honestly, if you take a look at the composition coming in from Myanmar, you would expect that the Uranus would be the one controlling the side lanes. But for Team Philippines, they're constantly building these slow push in the sides while also kind of distracting Myanmar on the other side of the map here. Even in the bottom lane, the tier 1 wasn't taken down. And by the way, if Myanmar continue to do this, continue to ignore that slow push up top, it'll be a free tier 2 turret just taken by the minions. That's why they're going to have to send Hlang up top, and that's also the right time now for Philippines to look for a fight or to possibly get the Lord low.
Yeah, so they're going to go ahead and start it up. Once again, we're going to have to pay attention to Al Puerto, how much damage she's going to be receiving from this Lord, and it looks like, you know, with that, they'll keep Amores up there. Obviously, one of the powers of having an Angela on your side, she can go ahead and push out those waves and then just come down to the fight with the Hard Guard, and now it's going to be initiation once again. It's Uranus though.
Wow.
No Blast not going to connect, but they're going to try to follow it up. Lord goes in for the reset. They're not going to use the Hard Guard, but the turret finally does go down that tier 2 top side. And once again, Myanmar is going to go ahead and start this Lord up. They've given up some objectives time and time again, but they don't want to give up the Lord again with the Iron Word, but it is a Uranus. Diagon going to make her way down for this fight. It's quite low here. Who gets it? It's Kay securing the Lord, but she goes down. Nether Realm already going to be used. Zaman Force as well. Philippines wants to fight possibly even more, but they have to deal with the Lord, and also Diagon being chased down. She doesn't die. Somehow, some way, Halang couldn't get the kill, and now on the bottom lane, they're going to put the pressure on Halang with the Lord. And in the mid lane, Vivero will hold it down by herself. Meanwhile, Lord worked on by Perez and Amores. Halang there all by herself, but right now, Philippines trying to stop this power move, this power play coming out from Myanmar, that they got the Lord here. So great job by Kay, able to secure the objective, but ultimately they haven't got anything just yet out of it.
Winning out of the fight right as the Lord gets taken away. It was unfortunate for El Puerto, but again, really good retribution from Kay to steal that away and to save that team fight again. Another skirmish.
Once again, now Numenal Blast going to find the target. Nether Realm just quickly worked on. This could be dire for them. Vivero has to flicker out. There's the enhanced chains going to be used. Ku could be in trouble. Has the Heart Guard for Diagon as she gets the kill. And now Perez joining the fight. Flickers forward, finds the kill on Kikoshi. And now Diagon pops the Vengeance. Couldn't find Luna Lin. But now in the mid lane, they might still try to get the tier 1. But Kay has joined the fight with Halang, so still no turret down, resources are up, and this Uranus is so tanky that she still survives. Heart Guard once again finding Diagon. They're going to push them under the tier 2. They just want this tier 1 turret in the mid lane, and so far Myanmar has done everything to defend it. Once again with the onward, and there's the enhanced chains finally taking it down Halang, and Philippines will march further down the mid lane, knocking on the tier 2. The combination again as Ku is the next one to go. Vivero on par, on game with this Iesf.
Well played, Philippines, again, just utilizing those small little victories in the early game all the way to the mid game, getting the turret slowly but surely into side waves with the better control over the waves with the Angela. But in the early game, it was with Perez, it was with the carry. The fact that the carry never participated in the fights gave her the opportunity, gave her the space to go and clear these waves, shove it in, making Myanmar miss out a whole wave, plus also dealing a lot of damage onto the turret simultaneously, right? So now if you take a look at Team Philippines, they were already always in the lead. Myanmar have gotten a Lord, have gotten 2 turtles. The neutral objectives are all on the side of Myanmar, except for that first turtle that was taken by Team Philippines. Yet the gold lead was still always held down by Team Philippines. And again, now we're finally getting to see that. Right as those item power spikes start coming in for Team Philippines, when Perez obviously have those 3 item power spikes already. El Puerto getting some more damage. I think a Holy Crystal or a Divine Glaive as well. And for Diagon, that late game CC is definitely already seen. And now, only now do they decide to start clumping up together. This is their time. This is the timers that they usually play with, right? Smart Omega, that's a team that's representing Team Philippines. And usually when we're talking about Smart Omega, there's that timer that always comes in handy for them. And it is looking like they're going to utilize it here with the Lord. Okay, enhanced Lord this time. It does seem like, okay, Myanmar want to just go for it. They want to go for a pure team fight.
Yeah, Amora's used that heart guard earlier, so they're going to force it onward into the Earth Shatter again. Numinal Blast will not be able to find the multiple targets, but look at the backside. El Porto going in with Diagon. They're going to collapse in on the backside, forcing it further. Luna Lin will flicker out, and meanwhile, Perez laying down the fire in the backside to fall for Myanmar. Heart guards back up, and now Kikoshi left to her own once again as El Porto gets the double. Halang might try to stall them out from getting this Lord. Meanwhile, Kay and Luna has to join the fight here. They can't give this Lord up. El Puerto will go ahead and keep the Lord busy. Meanwhile, Philippines putting them the pressure on Kay. And they can do just that as Philippines will go and get the Lord. And Myanmar has to get ready for the base defense.
Slow and steady wins the race, and that really is the key for Team Philippines. Just building their lead as slow as possible. I mean, obviously, they would love for it to be faster, but why do they need to go for the risky plays? Why do they need to go for, you know, the bombastic plays if they can just utilize these small little victories to eventually get the same result anyway? It's so safe the way that they're playing, but it's so efficient as well. 16 minutes in, it's not the usual, you know, dominance that we see in the first 10 minutes of the game, but it's the Filipino style of dominance. They just slowly but surely creep up on you, and suddenly, all of a sudden, 8,000 gold lead in your face.
Once again, defense is going to have to happen here for Myanmar, but look at the knockups. Vivero on point. Both turrets, mid and bottom, will fall. Lord still going to be worked on. Philippines could still just push in on the top. Meanwhile, Myanmar's going to clear this Lord out for now. They take a little bit of damage, but nothing too much, as they'll go ahead and defend successfully, holding on to this top turret in the base. Philippines, do they actually want to still put the pressure in? Vivero goes in, but it's a Uranus for a reason. She can't follow up just on that tanky member, but the Heart Guard used again. They're going to fight for this top turret. NetherRealm already going to be used out. Numinal Blast, though, won't find the connection that Myanmar is looking for. And Philippines, with a fully exposed base, will go in, trying to punch it in. They flicker out defensively. They don't have the minions in just yet. Diagon in the front. She has the Vengeance still available. They could still go for this. Onward, and a huge enhanced chains, but not enough follow-up to follow through. And Myanmar, it looks like they're going to stay in the game with a successful defense despite it being 14-2.
We were expecting the sustain to be insane for Team Philippines, and yes, it is, but my goodness, I think it exceeded my expectations, especially, man. 3 Brave Smites and a War Cry. With the Hard Guard too, they should be able to do this, but it was just it's just crazy the fact that they can keep up with the base. Myanmar, they're constantly going back and forth in the base to get the HP bars back, and for Philippines, they're just relying on their damage. El Puerto again.
Porto once again, and look, they're gonna find it out in the jungle. They're gonna catch him out. Kakashi could be in trouble. The Heart Guard is there already, but look at the bottom side. Perez all by herself. She might try to push it in. They already got Kakashi down, and now furthering the base assault. Philippines are looking to sweep the series. Myanmar trying to hold on the best they can. Coup comes up, but it might be too late as Philippines will sweep the series 2-0.
A clean sweep and a clean performance in game number 2 especially. Man, we were talking about in game number 1 how they were able to utilize just a full dive composition. Now, oh my lord, that was impressive stuff, man. The fact that they completely changed their style from game number 1 to what we were known. I mean, what is known to this team, right? We were accustomed to them just going for these skirmishes, winning it out, and dominating the opposition. Props to Myanmar for, for technically forcing this side of Philippines out, because we don't really get to see this much at all in the women's tournament. Seeing Team Philippines having to go for a different route for this kind of gameplay as well. They definitely pushed Team Philippines to show their best here, and my god, so well played by them, always splitting up the composition that gave Myanmar so much problems in game number 1. That was the Harith, right? Kind of the same thing with the Roger as well. They wanted to go for the burst, they wanted to go for the dive, and with the Guardian's Bulwark, with that last pick, Lolita, we thought, man, it's going to be tough for the carry, even El Puerto, and especially Vivero with the Primal Rat to deal damage towards Myanmar, because it'll actually be reflected back towards them. But all the way from the start, it just seemed like Philippines understood the assignment way better than Myanmar. From the start, they utilized El Puerto's damage on that Warcry, getting a crazy kill on Taku, who on the Lolita is a bit squishy. That's something that we have to take note as well. Lolita has been changed in a way. You can provide a little bit more utility, but you are a little bit more squishy than you were previously, right? And then just going for the consistent fights all around, punishing the overextensions from Myanmar by utilizing the sustain that is very, very deceiving. Yagon, she just couldn't die in the early game. I say that and then she dies right after this, but it's okay, right? She had to dive the turret. That was a turret dive. That was a different kind of death. It's not the normal team fighty way. She dove the turret a bit too deep there, and Chikoshi was able to punish her. But again, take a look at how Philippines are able to split the fight up to like multiple individual fights. Yagon dives into the back, gets rid of K, and then rotates around, kites Halang, while the rest of the members from Team Philippines just deal with the backline, right? And that was just so good, because for Myanmar, they needed to play in a proper dive formation. They couldn't just dive in with some of their frontliners being in the front. They needed Ku, they needed Halang to always be in the front line to take in some of the damage coming in from the CC and obviously from Perez. But the fact that they weren't able to do so because of how the rest of the team for Philippines, like Diagon, and Vivero, how they were able to split out the map, how they were able to split up Myanmar from these team fights, like this. When Halang is in the front line, the back line is nowhere to be seen because Diagon gets rid of them in the back, right? And when the back line is present, the front line is the one that gets displaced. The front line is the one that gets isolated, like you see here. So a lot of these examples is being seen as we go through the highlights, and the fact that they were able to punish so well. Early on, it was multiple small punishes, but as we get into the later stage of the game, it became big punishes. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's little by little that they go for these big punishes. And in these skirmishes as well, it never seemed like, it was a crazy 5-man enhanced chain, never any crazy combos. It was just them dealing damage over time towards Myanmar, and then overwhelming them with how much consistent damage they have, how much CC that they can layer, and even how much burst that they have. So many ways to deal damage, and we get this new asset, by the way, 19-minute game duration. Let's take a look at this, ladies and gentlemen. For the damage, 95,000 damage dealt by the CC. The total healing, 116,000 total healing for Halang. Man, it was really unfortunate for Halang. It's a counter matchup. It's already a really good matchup, and I think for Halang, she played really well. But unfortunately, Team Philippines just knew how to destroy this front-to-back composition, how to destroy their formation all the way from the start. We were talking about how the Fairness could actually be the answer to the dive composition, and it truly was. If Philippines played the way they did in game number 1, we would be seeing in game number 3. That's what's impressive about Team Philippines. They adjusted so quick to a completely different style, and against a very similar style to theirs in game number 1. Myanmar, Harith, Roger, Faramis, they wanted to be the ones to be proactive in the early game, to get that lead and to get that snowball. But Team Philippines said, no, we're going to weather the storm, wait for those power spikes. And when Perez has her items, after we've sent her down so many times through these neutral objective battles, she will be online. Once she's online, say goodbye to your HP bars, even the Uranus.
It's, man, when I look at this too, I feel like for Myanmar, like the Lolita was a good pick, but there was too many opportunities where the Numeron Blast didn't find the targets that it needed to, you know, and I think that's also just part of the Philippines playing really well around avoiding it. You know, for a lot of times sometimes it was just them using their mobility that they had with this lineup to kind of get out of it, or at least avoid the Numeron Blast as a whole. And so I think just really when you break it down, even when you saw the highlights, man, like the way they use this lineup to kind of cause chaos all around, all around Myanmar played a part. And you saw that really, especially, you know, the MVP of the match, Al Puerto here, very good decision making on the jungle we don't typically see too often, you know, for the Julian to come through and end up working out. But I think overall, like I said, the fact that they could move around the map so well, or move around a team fight rather, so well, is huge. And for me, I it's great Al Puerto gets the MVP here, but Vivero, man, like she was on point. Yeah. Throughout the entirety of the game. She's my personal MVP because, man, without her landing those onwards and earth shatters the way that she was, then like the whole team wouldn't have shined the way they did for a lot of those team fights throughout the game. So, you know, not to take anything here from El Puerto, she had a great game as well, but man, Vivero on the Iesf, especially after the first game, she really pulled through for the team here.
This, the SPA, man, Sky Pierce abuser. The Sky Pierce abuse definitely there is. The Julian was able to completely take control of the game every single time in these skirmishes, all the way from the start of the game. She didn't even need the SPA to get rid of Ku. Remember, right? Together with Vivero, onward Earth Shatter straight into that damage. But it does seem like we are just going to be going straight to the interview, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not too sure who we're going to be interviewing, but I guess we'll find out together. Me and Naisu, let's call her in. Who's it going to be to take this interview for the Philippines?
Diego?
All right.
Okay,
Diagon. Hello.
I always do this, man. There we go.
All
Hello.
Right. No worries. Hello. How you doing, Diagon, firstly?
I'm okay. I'm fine. Thank you.
All right. Quick question for me. Diagon, I gotta ask you, right? Especially considering, this is the first time we get to interview you, so I want to ask you, for the recent patch, do you think it's going to, level up Team Philippines? Do you think it's going to help Team Philippines? Or have you, been struggling to adapt to the current patch?
I think it's gonna help us. I mean, for the past patch, we've been with it so long, and I think we adapted very well to this new one. So, new surprises, and we adapt really fast. So I think this can help us a bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
Right? Real.
Galinho, huh? Diagon, congratulations again to see you guys perform here in this sweep. I also want to ask you a question because I actually thought Myanmar would be able to go maybe the 3-game series with you guys, but I want to ask you right off the bat, Diagon, who are you looking forward to fighting here? Is it going to be the typical answer everybody's waiting for? Is that who you guys are looking forward to face off against in ISF?
Yes, it is the typical answer.
Okay. Do you think so? Since it's Indonesia, right? Everybody is assuming that, of course. Do you think the difference now with the meta is going to give you guys an upper hand, or is it going to give or I should say this because I feel like that's an easy answer. You're going to say yes, it gives us an upper hand. Why does it give you an upper hand on this new patch, this new meta against Indonesia?
No, I wasn't gonna say yes. But okay.
Oh, okay. Go on.
Just kidding. I don't know. Maybe this new patch will give us both the time that. Since it's new for the both of us, so then now it depends on how we adapt both of the teams. Unlike the previous meta, like it's been we know it already by hand, but they know it better. But I guess this one is new, so we'll see. We'll see about that.
Are you guys having fun with the patch? I guess that's another question. Like, is this refreshing?
Yes, it's very refreshing, and it's fun to try new heroes, new items, and new emblems as well.
All right,
Awesome,
so
thank
me,
you.
last but not least, definitely for the question, right? Okay, since it's kind of different now. I know that for you guys, you love just playing around the Lord, utilizing the Lord dance. We even saw kind of a little bit of that, right? You took it very, very slow in these skirmishes, just kept on kiting. But what do you think, especially with the Lord dance changes? Do you like the new Lord dance changes, like now that it's very hard to do Lord dances, or do you still prefer the previous patch?
I personally prefer it now because most of the time when the team who has the lead pulls the Lord, they get the damage more. So I mean, if you're on the side that you don't want to pull it, then let them pull it. They'll get the damage.
That's what we've been seeing, nice. So, right, a whole lot of just damage thrown away by the Lord. We saw Kay take almost all of her HP by the Lord earlier in game 1. But yeah, any other question, Isu?
That's it for me. Galing mo mag-English, by the way. Good luck.
All right, well, thank you so much, Diagon.
Yeah, thank you.
Do you have any last words to say to the fans, maybe? All the, fans supporting? Oh, hold up. Never mind. We're just going to end it right there, right? It's all right, nice. So sometimes the fans will get it when they make it to main stage, right? Sometimes it just happens that way.
Right.
We got to keep the best
It
for
will.
last, right? That was a tease, actually, for all you guys who want to see the message from Diagon. Well, Diagon, you guys got to wait for the main event later on.
I can't wait because I think a lot of people are waiting for those two teams to eventually meet up for the women's MLBB matches, and I don't know if you and I are going to be casting it, but overall we'll have to see exactly what that works out, or how that works out, I should say. But it is nice to hear. Like they're feeling refreshed too with the current changes to the meta and some of these changes happening. I'm pretty sure the players, imagine playing MLBB with that same meta for 1.5 minutes in human years, over a year, for 8 hours a day. Come on. I know you stream a lot and you do that, but let's think about it.
Yeah.
Do you do it that much? I don't think so.
Bro, even as a caster, right, just watching the games played by these, tanks in the jungle completely dominating the scene, just making it super slow paced, it's been a tough watch sometimes, especially when both teams are super passive. But now even she said it, Diagon getting so comfortable with this new patch with the Lord Dance as well. They're like, all right, if you want to go in Lord Dance, just take the damage. That's maybe why they actually wanted to go in at the later stage. Up to Kay, because Kay, she took so much damage early on with just for the first Lord, which is surprising because we saw the 30th minute Lord, and that was what really impressed us in terms of how much damage you can actually take from the Lord. But the fact that the first Lord can already deal that much damage onto you on a Fredrin, by the way,
crazy.
That's a pick that you should be able to Lord Dance with. That's a pick that actually has a lot of sustain built in the kit. Very interesting stuff, man. And maybe that's what Philippines were doing. Maybe it wasn't hesitation. Maybe they were like, all right, wait, Kay's gonna die to the Lord, right? Let's just wait for that to happen and then engage later. But then they miscalculated a bit. The Lord was taken, and they're like, okay, let's go back, let's recall, let's just play in the base and defend. Maybe look for another team fight, and that's what they were able to do. That discipline is still really impressive from Team Philippines.
It is, and I think part of it too, maybe even for them, they're like, wow, is Kay gonna die to this, or is she gonna get to the 25% threshold, or something? But it was great to see, and a great way to end our jam-packed day number 3 here. We still have one more day ahead of us, Mirka.
One more day, and for you guys, don't worry, all right? You guys now can go and rest. We can rest as well. We'll see you fully energized tomorrow for the 3 matches that we will get to cast. And I think, by the way, there'll be more matches as well. So we'll confirm for you guys for tomorrow what matches are going to be streamed, things like that. So don't worry. Go ahead and check out iesf.gg to get the latest information on the groups, the standings, the matches that we'll have tomorrow, and all the matches that were played here, because some of the matches that weren't streamed were also going on at the same time. And if you guys really want to see exactly how the standings look, You guys have to look at the results, maybe even see which teams are going to be dark horses later on in the tournament by looking at their stats, right? Because some of these teams, they go unnoticed because they're not streamed and they're really, really good. But it's been nice, it's been Miracle. Thank you guys so much for watching. Catch us tomorrow again for the final day of the Asia Regional Qualifiers. Goodbye. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Asian Regional Qualifiers for IESF 2024, qualifying to Riyadh. We already saw earlier Myanmar take on Thailand, and also before that match, we got to see Cambodia go up against Thailand. But we're going to end things today on day number 3 of the Asian Regional Qualifiers with some MLBB women. So we got you a banger of a match. Technically tied right now in the groups. We got Myanmar taking on Philippines for MLBB Women's. I'm here together with Naisu to bring you guys this incredible match. So, Naisu, how you feeling, man, after casting the previous match? You know, Myanmar getting it done up against Thailand.
The men's matches have been really fun to watch, of course, and I think the same can be said for the previous matches we've seen so far from women's. Remember, if you guys missed it, we opened up the Asian Championships, this whole leg, with a whole day of MLBB women's, and it was fun to see some of the newer teams, newer nations, of course, play it out. But I think a lot of people have had their eyes here, especially on these two teams of Myanmar and Philippines, especially so far from what we've seen. Even the Indonesian female team that we got to see in the past couple days really performed. So now I think a lot of people on the live stream now want to see Philippines compete here. And of course, Myanmar, just as strong as their men team is, we'll see if they're able to, go toe-to-toe with a powerhouse team like the Philippines is. And really, I want to see exactly what they bring to the table with this new patch and everything that we've been seeing so far, man. Like, I don't even know. Meta isn't completely set up, but we're getting a better picture of it. And I think it's in a great position.
That's definitely something I think that we'll see here, right? How both teams actually try to utilize the new meta, because for the MLBB women's stage and the men's stage, it just feels like, for the meta at least, it's a bit different, right? For MLBB women's, we see more of those brawls early on for neutral objectives as well, but maybe sometimes as well, they like to go towards the mid to late game. They like to go for the Xavier picks, some of these late game picks in the mid lane as well. Not so much as we see in the MLBB men's, because in MLBB men's, it's all about getting an early game composition, at least for the trio mid. But then for the gold lane, we have those weak sides. We do have those scaling heroes. But let's welcome Team Myanmar first here. We got Lin, Luna, Lin X, Naing, we got Wint, Chikoshi Lin, Su Ku Zin, Yadanar Hlang, and Chue K Zin.
Wow, I like that. Just use your surname as your IGN. That is probably the easiest way to go about it. How did you pronounce that? Hlang?
Hlang?
Is that right? Hlang?
That's how, yeah, Hlang. Hlang?
That's what I'm going. I'm going with that, Hlang. All right. This lineup, though, for Myanmar, I think you put it in a good perspective there. We got to see if, based on what we saw from Myanmar men's and the history and experience that team has, that region has, we know that for a while they were a region that a lot of people saw as like a dark horse, and they didn't really know exactly how they would perform on on an international stage, if you will. And so far, I would say now people see Myanmar as a very big threat, very strong region. And, maybe not as many people have seen the female team play. So this is a good opportunity for those people who haven't seen that to see if it's the same tempo. Because anytime I think of Myanmar, that's what I think of, man. It's like they're like tempo, and they just get on the go right away, and they don't let games slip out of their hands.
And for the Philippines, it's more of that discipline, right? Like a slower pace game, but way more discipline, way more objective centered. And we're going to welcome them as well here for Philippines. We got Fi Amores, we got Fi Perez as well, Philippines Vivero, Philippines Al Puerto, and Philippines Diagon. We're going to see, those surnames, I believe, right? Being used here for the Philippines. I think this is the normal thing to see for the Philippines. I think for even the men's, right? They always use their surnames for their IGNs.
Yeah, I like that they do that. It's a sense of like kind of nationalism and really representing the country. So, they all have their IGNs that they go by. This is, for the people that are familiar with the Philippines, especially the female scene here, it is Omega Empress. So if you guys have been watching their games and the different tournaments that they've competed in, this is a pretty much